Chapter 2021. Saying goodbye was actually quite serious, especially this kind of goodbye that was linked to eternity. This time, when they met again, they would have crossed over an eternity of time. At that time, they would not know what they had become. Therefore, every time they said goodbye, they would have to use all their strength. Perhaps this might be the only time they would say goodbye. Still, there would be the occasional awkward situation where he would use too much force and forget some important things. Still, it was just as good as it was when he remembered. Before he charged into that space again, he first gathered the little green ones and stripped them. Temporarily stripped them of their military power. He was talking about those crazy things. He packed them all up and took them away since they were mass-produced anyway and could be replenished in a little time. Moreover, there was nothing that required his full strength at the moment, so it did not matter. I Ching scratched his head in confusion as he watched Lord Feng hastily enter the door once more. Lord Feng, what did you forget? You left with a bunch of, all the energy towers. We did not need to think too much to know what he was going to do. Oh, he's sending armed reinforcements. After all, we have to guard a chaos concept body, and the more power, the better. By the way, all of your energy towers have been taken away, right? How many of them are there? I Ching's forehead broke out in cold sweat at the mention of the chaos concept body, and it took a while before he calmly said, a full squad of them, and we worked overtime to make them after we came to this world. After all, we were preparing for the final confrontation with the chaos concept body, and so we prepared according to that scale. We didn't count the exact number, but there should be 100 billion, I think. The level 1 energy towers account for about 1,000th of the total, and they are all new generation energy towers. Lord Feng's various magic arrays are also at the level of 100 billion, and if all of them are deployed, it will be multiplied by another 100,000 or so. Everyone, could they be any more insane? It seems like they have always been this crazy. Then it's fine, seeing that everyone's eyes were wide open as if they had seen a ghost. I Ching thought that they had mobilized too many forces and quickly waved his hand to explain. It sounds like a lot, but in fact, it's just the armed forces of a small squad. Well, it's just a little more than the standard. Ever since Lord Maple's chaos transformation, frontline logistics have been strengthened and risked their lives. You can see how crazy they are from the small creation room they created. They repeatedly adjusted the creation room and sped it up a lot. Or dealing with chaos concept bodies after all. Lord Maple said it well. When the entire void is covered in the light of truth of order, we can fight with more dignity. In Lord Maple's name, for origins and order. Everyone, it's because we were beaten up last time. No, that's not the point. The point is that you can't learn from that lunatic. The front line of the void did not have many normal people in the first place, and there would be even less normal people in the void if he was transformed. Running all the way to the portal, Yin Nuashing tried to knock on it twice. When he realized that it could not be opened, he was stunned for a moment. Suddenly, he remembered the pattern on his right palm. He quickly manifested it and stuck on the closed door. Seeing that the latter suddenly lit up, he immediately pushed the door and entered. The orange sky and the sea of clouds appeared in front of him again. The dazzling light made him dizzy for a moment. However, this time, when he ran to the big bed again, he did not see anyone. This made him slightly stunned. Just as he was about to shout her name, a female voice with a sweet smile suddenly sounded behind him. Why are you back so soon? Can't bear to see me go? As soon as he turned his head, he saw an orange-pink dress and long hair that could almost bury him alive falling from the sky. A pair of hands reached for his face and immediately pulled his shoulders to the ground. He hurriedly shouted, "Wait, I have something to add." Yes, I know. Just say it like that. Luoing giggled and pulled him to sit down. She pressed his head on her thigh and smiled sweetly as she stroked his long hair. All right, say it. I'm listening. Yin Nuashing wanted to cry, but had no tears. He felt a little awkward when there was someone around, but now that there was no one around, he felt even more awkward. Ahem, I'm here to deliver a package. He cleared his throat and ignored the awkwardness for the time being. He took out a storage world and placed it in her hand. Here, take a look at it yourself. These are the things that we use to fight against chaos in this era. Although these things may not be as advanced as the things that you use in your era, they're still quite powerful when put together. If you use them, your upper limit should be much higher. Luoing took it and looked inside. She could not help but be surprised. Wow, you guys also like to use these densely packed order creations to guard the defense line. I can't help it. It's a matter of this era, and I guess this is a good tradition of order. Yin Nuashing scratched his cheeks and began to explain the usage of the massive amount of weapons. Those creations of order are all mass-produced, so don't worry about us. This small portion can be replenished very quickly. Their structure isn't that complicated, so you should be able to analyze it very quickly. You can modify it as you see fit. Also, those magic circles, there are many types of them. He explained in detail the usage, function, and modifications of those things used to construct the defense line of the void. Luoing smiled and looked at him as her cool little hand stroked his face. The cloud patterns in her silver-white eyes flowed with the light in her eyes. Phew, that's it. It had been more than a quarter of an hour since he finished talking. Yin Nuashing heaved a sigh of relief. The thoughtful expression on Luo Yin's face made him heave a sigh of relief again. She was thinking about whether these things were useful and what they could be used for. Instead of turning around and teasing him, it seemed that they could come in handy. To be honest, he still did not know that if he had to face this near-eternal time, he would. No, he did not even need to think about it. He would burn everything he had and fight the chaos concept body to the death. It was either he lived or he died. If he died, he would die happily and quickly reincarnate. It was because he knew that he could not withstand the seal for dozens of eras that he felt admiration for them. So, he also made a long-awaited promise, hoping that one day he could do his best to free them. It would be even better if she did not tease him. It's very interesting. You can use your limits as a foundation to level up. Using your limits as a foundation to build a higher platform, but it will not crumble. Luoing said as she reached out and tapped him on his forehead. This is a very difficult path. I think I understand what Xiao Xiao said about resisting the fortress built by the shattered dream. Yin Nuashing scratched his ear, his face sad and weak. Well, I'm just a weak origin. Luoing also felt helpless when she heard that. She poked him on the forehead a few times. You are too unlucky. Looking at the history of the Order Void, I don't think I can find anyone more unlucky than you. Yeah, I'm very unlucky, right? I'm already unlucky enough. Maybe it's because I left my luck in the Source environment after the arrival of the Source. After encountering the mess of the Source, I was so unlucky that the Void could not stand it anymore. That it brought me the mess of the chaos. Damn, that bastard is trying to kill me. Every time I see a chaos concept body, it's like I'm going through a grand Yuan realm explosion. Listening to those ink monsters saying interesting and not bad stuff, bring it back to the chaos void, let you destroy order with your own hands. Damn, I was an unlucky guy who was accidentally killed in my previous life. Why am I even more unlucky in this life? Can my bad luck be inherited from the previous life, or can it be stacked? As soon as the topic was brought up, he couldn't help but grumble and complain. Luoing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. When everyone was around, he didn't have such a big reaction when this topic was not brought up. Now that it was brought up, there was only resentment left in his words. Look at how long he had accumulated resentment. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy for everyone. Ahem. Yin Nuashing saw her helpless expression and hurriedly held back the pail of bitterness in his stomach. He coughed softly and slowly sat up, scratching his head sideways at Luoing. Well, I came back to bring this to you. Well, it would be great if it could be of use. Although this low-level creation might not be able to do anything to the chaos concept body. Well, it would be great if it could be of use. I hope it could be of use. Well, it would be great if it could be of use. Well, I hope it could be of use. Luoing covered her mouth and giggled. She rubbed his head and said, You've made me happier. Thank you. If that's the case, I'll have to prepare a gift in return. I forgot something too. It's all because I was so happy that I forgot. Wait for me. Well, actually, before he could say anything, Luo Ying floated to the side of the bed like a cloud and flipped around. He could not help but smile bitterly. After waiting for about 2 minutes, Luo Ying came back with a small gray ball. It was about a foot in diameter and looked very old. If one looked closer, one would find that the gray color was just the texture of the light it emitted. Its body should be a smooth, energy crystal that contained a very large amount of willpower. I see that you guys don't seem to use willpower much. It's the same in your creations. I'm afraid that well, the Void Frontline, right? That place should be lacking willpower, right? Luo Ying put the gray ball in his hand. This is a willpower crystal formed from my structural source and my power. It's very simple to use. It can be used as a pure order creation. If you want to learn how to use willpower, you can also use it to inherit part of it. He carefully put away the willpower crystal. Yin Nuoxing also had a small question. Speaking of which, in the inheritance of the heavenly god of origin, is there any inheritance related to willpower? Of course there is. My origin energy belongs to this category, and you didn't inherit all of it. Luo Ying subconsciously replied. She felt that something was wrong and shut her mouth. She stretched out her hands and put them on his face and shoulders. She slightly widened her pair of cloud-patterned silver eyes. Huh. Suddenly, Yin Nuoxing was pinched by her hands. His body suddenly stiffened. He felt uncomfortable all over. If it were not for her serious expression, as if she was checking something carefully, he would have screamed. Well, there was no one else here. It was useless even if he screamed until his throat was broken. After carefully examining little Fengling for a while, Luo Ying slightly lowered her head. She held her chin with her right hand and thought for a while. Is your inheritance not complete? There is no complete inheritance. At the mention of this topic, Yin Nuoxing smiled bitterly. I didn't receive any inheritance at all. Even I. Her power was divided into 3 or 4 parts. I don't even know if it's considered an inheritance. Luo Ying gently shook her head, but before she continued the topic, she pulled his head and pressed it on her lap. You have indeed inherited the origin energy, but there seems to be a flaw. Among the existing origin energies, only the power of the god of destruction is complete. The other origin energies seem to only have surface characteristics. That is to say, the power itself is not complete. Wait, that's not right. It's not just surface characteristics, but each origin energy only has a part of its original characteristics. Even if you have completed 80% of the transformation of all origin energies, only the power of destruction really has 80% of its power. The other origin energies can't unleash their true power at all. When a successor inherits the origin energy from the god of destruction, what they get is an entire world. And you, Luo Ying thought for a while and turned her head away. She could not bear to look at it directly. Just a place. Yin Nuoxing was speechless. Although I know that what I got is the emasculated version, isn't it a little too shabby and pitiful for you to put it that way? To put it simply, characteristics were the soul of a power. A soul. He probably inherited the origin energy that was related to will, but he did not activate the power of will it contained. That was its characteristic. It was like inheriting an ocean, but the ocean had evaporated, leaving only a hole where it used to be. It was more or less the same. It was enough to understand. But that's the truth. Luo Ying stuck her tongue out. Actually, oh wait, speaking of which, do you know what the guardian of will that your children talked about is? Yin Nuoxing threw out a question that interrupted them halfway. It's actually very simple. It's the power of will that is similar to mine. This world was born from my rules, order, and energy. The children more or less have the same presence as me. The lower limit is 20 to 30%, and the upper limit is 50 to 60%. Luo Ying explained softly and flicked his forehead. You, on the other hand, inherited all the origin energy. Naturally, there's the same origin energy as mine. It's the origin energy that's related to the power of will. Although the characteristics of the power of will are not activated and you can't use it, it still has this part of power. That's why they treat you as the guardian of will. That's because of the same origin energy. Yin Nuashing shook his head, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Because the origin energy did not react, I thought that it had nothing to do with this world. But in the end, it's still puffed. It's all the origin energy's fault. He coughed dryly and changed the topic. My origin energy is just like what I said just now. There's no such thing as an inheritance. Actually, the whole story is very simple. You know the realm of gods, right? They left their power there. Now that I think about it, that part of power should be left behind to maintain some kind of defense and seal in the realm of gods. I was just accidentally tortured by the energy they left behind, leaving marks all over my body. As Yin Nuashing spoke, he smiled bitterly. After explaining the situation in more detail, he helplessly covered his face. That's how it is. I'm just a guy who didn't learn much and didn't receive any proper inheritance. My proficiency in using origin energy was something I had to endure. The reason I was able to forcefully pull my origin to 80% was because I came into contact with too many fragments. He pulled his hair and fiddled with it for a while before frowning again. But I'm in the shattered continent of origins with them. I have to explain the shattered continent of origins first. After spending 2 to 3 minutes explaining, Yin Nuashing continued. That's it. When I met with your goddess, they did not mention it. You can still meet the goddess. Luoying looked a little envious and poked his face. After a while, she continued the topic. Your situation is very complicated. But don't worry, the goddess knows. Since they have met you, they already know everything about you. As for why they didn't mention it, they must have their own considerations. Maybe, based on my guess, maybe, Luoying pondered for a moment before continuing. Maybe it's deliberately controlled. That is, the destruction energy is the main power, and the other goddess power is the support. Why don't you go in and ask the goddess next time? That's the only way. Yin Nuashing responded with a wry smile, but he agreed with what she said. Maybe she really did deliberately control the situation to be like this. It was certainly possible. He had to use all his strength just to deal with her power, and could only use all his remaining strength to deal with the other primordial energies. Even if his talent of multitasking was maxed out, he was almost unable to cope. With so many trivial matters to attend to, he could not do anything else. At this moment, if there were 147 paths to the heavens in front of him, he could only choose one and take a look at the other paths while he was at it. Just like now, the destruction energy was the main path, and the others were complementing it. The power of a certain creation god was trembling because of excessive fear. Damn, what a confusing primordial god. Yin Nuashing suddenly stood up and scratched his head. It's getting late. I have to go. Luoying also stood up and waved at him a little reluctantly. Well, I wish you all the best. Yin Nuashing looked at her a few more times, nodded slightly, and said goodbye. After taking a few steps, he turned back to look. After a while, he walked out of the portal. The girl watched him leave and sighed a little. Looking at the storage world orb in her hand, she murmured softly, Little Feng Ling gave me this gift. I have to use it well. It's really good stuff. Its overall level is actually comparable to the order creations used in our era. It can help me relieve a lot of pressure in the future. Little idiot, thank you. She sighed softly and kept the item carefully. Then, she gently pushed open the door to the concept level of the rules. But before she walked in, the door that was not closed suddenly opened again. Little Feng Ling rushed out from it and looked anxious. Luoying, wait, there's something else. Luoying said, why don't you stay for the night? Have a meal and sleep before you leave? We can talk through the night and see if there's anything we need to talk about in one go. This. Yin Nuashing's face was full of awkwardness. He started to pick things in his soul again. He hurriedly threw out all the world orbs in his soul. There were more than 10,000 of them, and they were all piled on her bed. These are specially made world orbs. They're all filled with origin energy. Your Qing Qing and Shi Shao said that the capacity is very large. They should be able to help you. Specially made? Luoing finally could not stay calm after hearing this. She walked over and picked up a world orb to take a look. She could not help but take a deep breath and exclaim, "What did you go through to do such a crazy thing? If the few of us worked together to use such dense energy back then, we would be able to throw a chaotic concept body back into the chaotic void. It's all kinds of unlucky. Look at my unlucky origin realm. Ah, these specially made world orbs are all special in their own way. Let me tell you more about them." Luoing shook her head. She did not know whether to laugh or cry. She seemed to understand what Shi Xiao and Qing Qing meant. She had underestimated Xiao Fengling's determination and insanity. This was twisting himself from the peak of origin realm to the origin realm. His mind, soul, and structure were all twisted into that state. Even if his body was completely restricted and left behind, he would never give up. Even if he had to tear himself into pieces, he would still set foot in that realm. In fact, he really did that. Phew, as expected of the successor of the god of destruction. Luoing asked herself if she could be like him. The answer was no. Even they could not do that. Perhaps the gods were also shocked when they saw Xiao Fengling. It must have been a very interesting scene. This crazy little idiot. The world quieted down completely, and she was the only one left. Looking at the light and clouds in the sky, she felt as if she was missing something. She let out a long sigh and looked at the large pile of things on the bed and the floor next to the bed. There were many more than when she piled up the world orbs just now. Little Feng Ling probably took out all her belongings. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but her heart felt warm. She felt melancholy for a while and returned to the table. She began to tidy up the pastry plate, dessert bag, watermelon peel, orange peel, durian shell, used pots and pans, and 2 toys created by order, specially made by the gods. As she tidied up, she did not know whether to laugh or cry. Xiao Fengling really stayed to have a meal with her. That's right. This feeling of trying my best to reach out and grab someone, wanting to touch something, she sighed softly. It was as if she, who had once been a shadow, had tried her best to touch the reality of the real world, but could only feel the torrent of reality mercilessly washing past her. So many years had passed that she couldn't even count how many years had passed. Little idiot, if there is a future, then let me understand you better. After all, understanding him in the future was not as realistic as the reality. Hui and the others, who had been waiting outside the door for 3 to 4 hours, were starting to let their imaginations run wild with anxiety. A lot of bizarre thoughts were running around in their minds. Little Qing Zi was already hurriedly building an energy tower in case something happened. After all, it was his Lord Feng, right? It was entirely possible that something might happen if he was not careful. They should have followed him just now and not let him go alone. Just as everyone thought that an observer might be fighting the chaos concept body inside and was about to switch to combat mode and charge in, the sound of the door suddenly opening woke them up. They turned their heads in unison and saw a certain person walking out with a yawn, looking slightly tired. Seeing this, they couldn't help but have more thoughts in their minds. Yin Nuashing had just rubbed her eyes and came back to her senses when she saw everyone's weird expressions. She could not help but be startled. What's with that expression? I thought that you were being eaten inside, eaten in every sense of the word. We could not help but say. I even thought that you were fighting the chaos concept body and was about to rush in to help. Well, it's nothing like that. Her seal has been suppressed quite well, and there shouldn't be any problems in the next few years. It's just that when we were talking, we realized that there were a lot of things that we missed out on and accidentally took a little too much time. Yin Nuashing's shoulders drooped as he walked out listlessly. His expression was terrible. If I talk too much now, my brain will turn into paste. You all know my situation. The more I explore, the more confused I become. By the time a topic ends, I'll realize that I've already changed 70 to 80 topics. I've gone off topic to an outrageous extent. Everyone, that's right. They were quite clear that it was especially so when no one was tying them down. They could go off topic into the chaotic void and could not be pulled back. There were even times when some people could not be tied down. So what did you say? We could not help asking. What else could it be? It's about the origin energy about myself, and some things about the power of will, the creation of order. I want to die. Yin Nuashing rubbed her hair hard and shook her head with a bitter smile. I have to sort that out. What's with that expression? Hui, Ning Fei and the others saw her bangs fluttering and stared hard, pressing their thumbs against their foreheads and winking at her. While they were frantically gesturing, the little angel had already stepped forward and condensed a silk handkerchief with energy. When Little Star was at a loss, she pressed his head and gently wiped his forehead. She smiled and put the red silk handkerchief in front of him. Yin Nuashing looked at the red silk handkerchief and thought for a while. Then, she rolled her eyes and stopped breathing. She felt that half of her remaining energy had been sucked away. Seeing this, the little angel could not help but cover her mouth and chuckle. Sister Luoyin is quite enthusiastic. Siyu rolled her eyes and suddenly pulled Blue Phoenix and Shuang Shuang together. She bent her slender fingers and whispered in a low voice, a generation's inheritor, single, beautiful big sister, and has an agreement with Little Star. Blue Phoenix, Shuang Shuang, a threat, a very strong opponent. Yin Nuashing's face twitched when she heard this. She rolled her eyes and almost died from exhaustion. Oh, that bad guy. Hui slapped his forehead and did not know whether to laugh or cry. So, I'm really surprised that you were not eaten in there. Amazing your head. You're obviously messing with me. Yin Nuashing rolled her eyes and sighed weakly. Forget it, forget it. Let's talk about it after a few dozen eras. Everyone, a gentleman's revenge, a few dozen eras. Even the void has expired. We came to his side and put his arm on his shoulder. He coughed dryly and said, a long time ago, there was someone who was too immersed in acting and accidentally played himself into it. As a result, don't worry. That evil, she wasn't acting. Her nature is different. Besides, we've only just met. What she saw before was just my ghostly shadow. She's not a child anymore. How could she possibly be interested in a ghostly shadow? She just wanted to torture me. Although I don't know why she wanted to torture me. That is what happened. Yin Nuashing crossed her arms and continued to walk out. I have experience. Phew, it is not the first time I've been tortured, although I still can't handle it. Where did this kind of magical experience come from? Why don't I know anything about it? A long time ago, it has been a long time. Anyway, this kind of thing happened. Don't worry about these details. Oh, then let's change the topic. Hui immediately put on a serious expression. Is there really nothing else to say? Do you want to think about it again? The land of origin, the power of origin, the chaos concept body, the underworld, that person, the chaos, and so on. Think carefully and say it all at once, in case you run in and out again later. Do you think this is sit-ups in a coffin? Chapter 2022. As the portal to the space between consciousness closed, everyone who had just emerged from the portal had their own subtle and complicated emotions. They sighed, and then looked up at the flat space after the portal closed, and continued to sigh. This blue sky, white clouds, and grassland. Where are they? Oh, I know this place. Let's go this way. Lita took a few glances and clapped his hands. The old horse knew the way and led the way forward, leading the 5 shiny consciousness condensations and Feng Ling and the others in an unknown direction. In any case, they arrived at the battlefront between the eastern and northern regions without any problems. The long war had ended, but the towering battlefront was still standing. Countless warriors were still flying in and out of the battlefront. With the battlefront as the center, the land was recovering from its scorched state at a speed visible to the naked eye. Compared to when they left in a hurry, this place now looked a little more pleasing to the eye. At least it was no longer just a gray and pitch-black land that was polluted by the demonic energy. Although the purification speed was quite fast, it would take a little bit of time for them to completely purify this vast land. God knows how long it would take for them to completely purify this battlefield. This scene really feels like everything is over and the future is looking forward to, Siyu whispered in his ear. Yin Nuashing covered half of his face and smiled bitterly. It's just a short period of time. Ah, no, it's just that the battle here is over. The battle that spread throughout the world is not over yet. However, he didn't need to worry about that. He believed that Luo Ing would find some way to help. The battle in this world was still far from over. It would take some effort to clean up these creatures that were distorted and condensed by the chaotic energy. They weren't easy to deal with, and just tearing them apart wasn't enough. Just look at the chaos that spread across the entire world and divided the human territory into isolated islands. Tearing apart all the demonized creatures wasn't enough. They had to be cleansed of the chaos left behind by their Yanko, singing, and dancing. TSK, look at how many people there are. That grand and majestic movement doesn't match the atmosphere and momentum of the Yanko dance. Then, let's put it another way. How about Onsai Waist Drum? Next topic. So the end hasn't come yet, but at least there's hope now. There's no need to rush. The coming of the end, those, consciousness condensations, right? That's what they told me. Standing at the top of the great shrine and overlooking the land, Lu Xiaoqiu suddenly walked to his side and stared at the land with him. She shrugged cutely and said, although it doesn't feel too real. In the future, the chaotic demonic wilderness will no longer be a barrier that divides the land. All life forms in the region will unite under the organization of the Great Shrine and work together to complete the remaining goal of this world. Yin Nuoxing glanced at her from the corner of her eyes and shrugged. This is what you wanted to see before, a goal you wanted to achieve but couldn't act on, isn't it? Lu Xiaoqiu stroked the gray hair by her ear. That's right. When I was trapped in this area, I always wanted to break through this layer of blockade and fantasized about sweeping through the chaos devil wilderness. I thought that was just my own fantasy, but I didn't expect. There's nothing special to think about. Things in this world are always joking, and it's normal for unexpected things to happen. You just need to adapt to the situation and face everything that's going to happen. The gray-haired girl chuckled when she heard that. Then, as if she remembered something, her pretty face stiffened as she subconsciously covered her stomach with her palm. That's right. I hope there won't be something so scary and sudden next time. My stomach can't take it. That. Yin Nuoxing turned her head and spat out a mouthful of water, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. This girl had been running around with them from Small Corner all the way to this place. Along the way, there were scares, but no mishaps. Every time there was an accident, this girl would be scared out of her wits, as if her soul had flown out of her body. Well, they were used to accidents. After all, the number one thing in the void, the number one Oracle Emperor in the void, it was a little difficult for them to not get into trouble by relying on these two things. Those are actually things that we can't resist. It's not that we can't avoid accidents just because we don't want to. Accidents happen everywhere we go. We really can't help it. For example, when they first came in and found that there was a yuanshi in this world, they were stunned for a moment. Then they observed and determined that the top combat power in this world was at the peak of the beginner yuanshi. They did not expect that there would be a mid-level yuanshi. However, they did not expect that after coming to this large area, those crazy guys in the northern region would bring out a high-level yuanshi who was close to the peak of the yuanshi. In the end, it even involved a peak yuanshi and some terrible things. They did not know where to find reason for this matter. Seeing Yin Nuoxing explaining in a hurry, Lu Xiaoqiu could not help but cover her mouth and chuckle. Her long gray hair and white robe swayed in the wind, casting a bright scene out of thin air. Yin Nuoxing calmed down a little and sighed helplessly. When he first saw her, she only had a belief and a persistence to do something. However, she could not do anything because of the pressure brought by the big wall of reality. From her eyes, he could see the fighting spirit, infinite energy, and overflowing confidence that once existed. The spirit that was built on that belief was actually as shaky as the belief itself. Perhaps it would collapse with a gentle push. Faith was something that could be easily worn down by time. But fortunately, she was not an impulsive person. Although she was a young, high-level life form, she was not a rash person who would bury her head and rush forward with passion and ideals. Therefore, at that time, she did not do anything. Although she was constrained by the pressure of reality, she did not give in. She had been moving forward silently and waiting. Even if she took the initiative to wear down her belief bit by bit, she preserved it very well and never let it extinguish. Until finally, this moment came. She waited for the person who could really tear this frozen world apart. She waited for the day when the sky suddenly appeared and the dense clouds dissipated. It wasn't hard to guess what would happen in the future. She would probably be active in the upcoming battles, and people like her would probably experience a rapid growth in the coming days. In this world without any restrictions, growth was very Yin Nuoxing suddenly screamed, scaring everyone to the point that their necks shrunk and shoulders trembled. The 20 to 30 people in this place all turned their heads in confusion, only to see the former holding his forehead with one hand as if he had a headache. Hui sighed in advance and shouted at Foam, "Tell me, what did you forget?" "There's something I forgot to say. Everyone, this guy really wants to go in and out. Why did he really forget about something? Didn't we already remind him?" "Aya, what reminders? It's normal that I can't remember at the moment. The things we were discussing are taking up too much of my brain space. It's too taxing on my brain. After one round of rolling, my brain didn't turn to paste because I had a good rest today. After 2 rounds, I can still stand because my legs are stiff. After 3 rounds, cough, cough. Anyway, it might be something important, but..." Seeing that everyone was sighing and turning their heads away to avoid looking at him, Yin Nuoxing grinned bitterly. "It's just a little awkward. Wow, if I go over again like this, will she laugh to death?" Hui smiled bitterly and put his hands on his hips. "What did you forget? How important is quite? Or is it about the origins?" "No, no, no." Yin Nuoxing shook her head vigorously. "It's about the fact that there are no restrictions in this world. If we can find a reason, maybe we can..." Hui and the others were stunned. His jaw was suddenly dislocated. This is indeed a very important thing. Speaking of which, they really don't remember much about this matter. It's just ridiculous. It's all ridiculous. Yin Nuoxing scratched her head and hesitated for a while. Gritting her teeth, she used the thing that Luo Ying left for her to open the portal to the concept level of the rules, and hurriedly said, I'll be back soon. Don't get eaten. She runs so fast." Hui sighed, shook his head, and waved to everyone. "It's okay. Don't worry about her. She's just having a spasm. She'll be back in a while." If she can't come back, he was silent for a while and looked up at the sky. "Are we going to have a big feast in this world? Speaking of which, the war hasn't ended yet. Isn't it not good to have a celebration?" Everyone smiled bitterly. "Well, it's just a joke. The war hasn't ended yet, so there's no need to do those things. Still, we've pretty much talked about what's next and the rest." We turned to the 5 consciousnesses. "Well, you're all veterans of order and have fought against the forces of chaos. You're all warriors of order, so I don't have to worry about cleaning up this world. But more importantly, little Qing, do you have any energy towers for purification?" I Ching's breathing stagnated, and he hurriedly searched his body. His face twitched, and he quickly shouted to everyone through their soul communication. "Guys, are there any energy towers for purification of chaos?" "Your Excellency, I Ching, we've just been scoured clean by Lord Maple. There's really not a single one left." Yeah. I heard that to maintain the suppression of the chaos concept body, it feels like we're hiding something. There's no energy towers left." "Wow, not a single one? Just one?" "There's really none." "Well, if you're in a hurry, why don't we start work right now?" We did not know whether to laugh or cry as he held back the anxious little Qing and replied through the soul communication. "The previous generation is fine. The previous generation is fine. I don't have the previous generation's energy towers with me, so I'll ask you guys for some." I Ching, who almost wanted to take out the small creation space to build an energy tower on the spot, quickly calmed down and hurriedly took out the previous generation's energy towers from his storage space. The Order warriors who were wandering around, helping or being a hindrance were also hurriedly taking out energy towers. They all knew what to do next, and had already subconsciously replaced the energy towers with larger and more durable energy cores. It was an old occupational disease, and it was all subconscious. Lida and the others looked at the tens of thousands of towers that suddenly appeared in the area. Soon, the number of towers increased to hundreds of thousands, millions, and tens of millions. In less than 2 minutes, a forest of towers appeared in front of them. Lida couldn't help but stare. Are these the weapons that you used? Seems like they're one size smaller. Huey's eyes also widened. They had just cleared the inventory last time, so how could they still take out the previous generation's energy towers that were worth tens of millions? Could it be that they added some emergency supplies later? Ahem. Noticing that everyone was looking at him, Hui coughed dryly and pointed at the thing that Qingzi took out. Oh, it is indeed something that we can use. This thing is a creation of order. It can effectively purify the remaining chaos energy. That is, the demonic energy. That part of the chaos energy is quite lazy. It is so lazy that you can effectively deal with it if you put in more effort. Pull up a more advanced purification energy tower, and you should be able to disintegrate it without much effort. Oh, right. Don't use it to attack the demonized beings. These models are not for attacking. Hui paused, and his face twitched. Of course, if it's accidentally broken, and you have the leisure to do so, it's not impossible to use it as an extra-large blunt weapon to open the girls' heads. This thing is quite hard, and if you throw it out in a circle, no one within 100 miles will be able to survive. If you carry it to smash the brains of a mid-tier premier, there's a 70 to 80% chance of breaking the defense. Uncle Bird and the others were speechless. They raised their heads to look at the energy tower that was 10 to 1,000 feet tall. Then, they looked at the thickness of the tower and imagined how it would look like to swing such a big stick like a windmill. They all fell silent. For some reason, they thought of the battle not long ago. There was a warrior who had smashed the entire battlefield into smithereens while laughing maniacally while swinging 2 towering pillars. That must be someone from their family, right? In short, they kept the thing with subtle expressions. They knew the power of this thing and would definitely use it properly, but as for swinging it, forget it. After the conversation ended, everyone stood still and waited for a while. About a quarter of an hour after someone left, he opened the portal again and walked out. Before Maple could say anything and close the portal, Hui immediately shouted, "Wait, are you sure you don't have anything to say? Once we leave, the mountains and rivers will be long, the earth will grow old, and the void will collapse." Yin Nuoxing's cheeks twitched for a while. She looked at the portal hesitantly. "It should be gone. No. It's definitely gone. Definitely. Everyone was stunned by her frightened expression. We couldn't help but ask, "What's wrong with you now? Why are you so scared? If you have something to say it clearly. What are you afraid of?" "I'm really scared. I have nothing to say. Even if I have something to say, I have nothing to say." Yin Nuoxing shivered and hugged herself tightly. Her face was dark blue and black, as if she had frostbite. "If I go in again, you won't see me again until tomorrow morning. In fact, I almost couldn't get out just now. This can't do. If you don't work hard, you'll become someone's plaything. This really can't do. Girl, come and help me wipe my back from my neck down." Everyone was speechless. Wow, what kind of treatment did he receive in there? "Ow, don't touch that bite mark. It hurts. Everyone was speechless. I can't bear to look anymore. Cough. Pay attention to your image." After the little angel cleaned up foam, we coughed dryly and leaned forward. "So, what's the conclusion? The forbidden seal is..." "The conclusion is that there's no way around it." Yin Nuoxing shook her head. "Luo Ying herself doesn't know what happened to cause this result. Well, it could be that when the origin energy and the chaos energy were entangled, it could be related to the Dark Nightmare poem, or it could be that when the 3 were dancing together, something happened. Anyway, there's no way around it. By the time she knew about it, the result was already like this. Also, after some discussion, we realized that this kind of high-level life form that doesn't need to go through the Forbidden Zone would still require a lot of time to deal with things like order and whatnot. After considering it from top to bottom, this isn't much different from having a Forbidden Zone. At most, the main road would be clear and we would be able to leave whenever we want. It wouldn't be like before, where we would be blocked when we want to leave. In short, there's no need to dwell on this matter. Huey's face twitched when he heard the conclusion. Then, didn't you get tormented for nothing? Yin Nuashing was silent for 2 seconds, her face twitching wildly. Don't say any more. After finishing the discussion about the follow-up arrangements for this world, they asked I Ching to clean up a large group of people. They ran to the temple next door and found Shu Qing and the others who were resting after finishing their hard work. After the battle, everyone in the mystical world helped to clean up the battlefield. At that time, it was not time to leave yet, and they didn't want to go around the world to pick up people, so they left them here first. They were also frightened by the repeated bumping into walls when they came to this world. It seemed that for the time being, they didn't intend to run around and jump around randomly. They also stayed here peacefully, which saved them a lot of worry. Now, it was almost time to slip away. They had to bring them along, although it was a little different from the original idea of staying here to fight for 15 years. Well, after the concept layer of this world's rules was repaired, the small entrance would be closed forever. It was originally a cage world of chaotic concept bodies, and it was not suitable for people to come in and out. It was better for unrelated people to leave honestly. Well, there were also unrelated people, and now they were ready to slip away. Shu Qing and the others, who were sitting on the floor outside the temple and resting, suddenly heard a series of neat footsteps. They turned their heads and saw Feng Ling and the others walking together. They quickly patted their dusty robes and armor and stood up. Monitor straightforwardly greeted them. "Oh, you're done? How was it? What's next?" "Next." Yin Nuashing moved her right shoulder. "Next, we're going to deal with another matter that you've been waiting for a long time." Shu Qing was slightly startled, and the hand that was tying up her hair trembled. "Now? Didn't you say that everyone is missing?" "Yes, now. If everyone is missing, then we'll go gather them." Yin Nuashing nodded slightly. His gaze landed on the blue sky. Looking at it slightly, for some reason, he thought of that orange-pink space. His face twitched. "It's time to leave this world." "Oh, I don't know how to tell you. In short, this is a world with a special existence. We outsiders should not disturb the peace here from the beginning to the end. We should not. Now it's time to leave." "It's time to leave." The people from the mystical world who were waiting here were startled. Someone couldn't help but say, "Didn't you say it would take 15 years or something?" We tried to leave before, but there was no way to leave this world. It seems that we can't touch the world barrier." "Oh, that was the situation in the past. Now, oh, it's not possible now. It seems that only I can open the door." Yin Nuashing looked at the sky and couldn't help but scratch his head after seeing the situation. The mark left by Luo Ying was probably the key, making it convenient for him to run around. "In short, we should leave. The matter here has been settled, and the people from the 2 families are now in our hands. We don't have to care about those things anymore, right? You saw the people from the Changyuan and Holy Spirit realms." Shu Qing was startled again, and her eyes that had lost their brilliance couldn't help but fluctuate. If the 2 families are controlled, well, the matter of the past 15 years is over. This is probably the first time in history that it ended so early. He put his hands on his hips and looked at the sky. "It's time to end it." "Yes." Yin Nuashing nodded slightly, and his colorful eyes revealed a deep and complicated light. "Yes, it's time to end it. The matter here should also come to an end." Looking at Maple, who only murmured and didn't act too rashly, Hui breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that he had survived the outbreak of the war fever syndrome. There was no need to worry about him not being able to hold back and striking the order void in the next second. Of course, it was still necessary to pay a little attention. The prognosis. Ahem. It was hard to guarantee that when he returned to the outside world, he wouldn't encounter some lunatic who would reignite the fire he had just extinguished. That wouldn't be fun. That wouldn't do. By the way, if we need the 3 parties to sit together for a discussion, how we do it? We couldn't help but murmur. What he said surprised the people around him. Shu Qing looked at them meaningfully, stroked the long spear in her hand, and shook her head. It's hard to imagine. In a 3-party war, One party is the invader, the other party is the victim, and the other party is a bystander. He can be regarded as an accomplice. It's very difficult to get the three parties to sit together and talk peacefully. Who wants them to be peacefully? Hui shrugged. I just want them to get together. If I can do it, it will save me some trouble. If I can't, then, seeing that he suddenly showed a thoughtful look, Monitor couldn't help but ask, then what? Then they may die. Everyone, either sit down and talk or die at the speed of light. They believed that this group of people in front of them definitely had such power. They had personally experienced it on this side of the battlefield. The corner of Shu Qing's eyes twitched twice, and she said calmly, "You could try to talk to the domain master of the Tianxin world. Maybe, well, if it's her, maybe it can be done. This time we went back early and brought a big victory. I think she will also listen to your conditions. I just don't know if the important thing to discuss can be done with this kind of bargaining chip. Phew, maybe it's very difficult. Let's try, but maybe faster." Hui turned his head to look at Feng, who was talking to Lu Xiaoqiu. That guy who is afraid of trouble has finally suppressed his morbid mentality. If we don't take advantage of this time to settle the matter steadily, it will be difficult to deal with when someone makes him angry. Oh, Monitor covered his chest and took a deep breath. What will happen? You saw the scene on the battlefield that day, right? Hui covered his face and smiled bitterly. Seeing that they all showed a lingering fear, he continued, 2 or 3 rounds in a minute, each round lasting 10 seconds, lasting for half an hour. Huh? You don't understand? You can't tell? It's okay. I'll make it clear. Each round can magnify the disaster you saw on that day by 100 million times. Ah, you understand. Everyone, that half an hour had passed, and the void had been sunk. After checking the things in this world and confirming that there should be no mess left for them to solve, everyone tidied up and prepared to... there's one last thing. Yun Nuoxing clapped his hands, and everyone's faces immediately darkened as they stared at him as if they were looking at something indescribable. He quickly laughed dryly and waved his hands. No, it's not what you think. He turned his head to look at Lu Xiaoqiu. I have to send you back first. The gray-haired girl blinked her green eyes. I almost forgot. It's time to go home. After crossing the territory, I haven't been in contact with him for a long time. If I don't contact him soon, my father may drive a fleet all over the world to find where the hell I am. Everyone, this girl must have been shocked silly. Since it was a solo event, Yin Nuoxing took Lu Xiaoqiu on his own, set off. Hui and the others also remembered that they should go and look for Mu, Sung Yuan, and the others to inform them. After all, they would be gone for who knew how many years. If they left, there would be no after. The probability of this happening was very high. Therefore, they still had to say goodbye seriously. The concept layer that had been slightly restored allowed them to use the teleportation portals to jump around at will, saving them the effort of going back and forth. They only needed to open a few portals and walk 2 segments to send the gray-haired girl back to Abyss Moon City. We're here. After putting Lu Xiaoqiu on the city wall of Abyss Moon City, Yin Nuoxing stretched and looked outside the northwest city wall. The big pit that Tianhui blew up had not been filled yet. He also judged from the pit that this was indeed Abyss Moon City. The surrounding atmosphere was normal, and there were no blind, demonized creatures attacking the city at this time, which made him feel more at ease. Looking at the familiar Abyss Moon City appearing in her sight, Lu Xiaoqiu was a little sluggish. Her mind quickly flashed through the things she had experienced during this period of time. She couldn't help but touch her eyes. It really doesn't feel real. I've experienced a lot in a short period of time. Well, just sort it out slowly and deal with it slowly. There's still many things to do next. Yin Nuoxing leaned back on the city wall, raised his head, and let out a long sigh of relief. The future. This world still has a long time. There's still many things to do, and many things worth doing. Compared to the outside world that seems to be a death sentence, this world still has a lot of time. Difficult to deal with? The outside world? She tilted her head curiously. Well, that's how it is. However, we still have to grit our teeth and deal with it. Those are the things that we need to do. Just like how you have things to deal with in your world, we are the same. There are many things that we have to face and do in this world. Yin Washing let out a long sigh, straightened up, and patted her shoulder. Then, I'll send you here. This time, there weren't any accidents, and there weren't any strange things, and we arrived smoothly. Lu Xiaoqiu couldn't help but chuckle. It's so formal. It's because you said you were afraid of accidents or something. I didn't dare to delay and chose the most normal and quiet place to teleport all the way. Yin Nuoxing scratched his head and couldn't help but smile bitterly. He would be ridiculed again if he accidentally jumped to a strange place. She smiled even more happily when she heard that. After a while, she reached out her hand to him. I should have treated you well, but looking at how busy you are, maybe I won't have a chance. Yin Nuoxing shrugged and reached out to shake her soft and delicate hand. There's no other way. However, if you, or your soul, are still around in the distant future, it's not impossible for you to have this chance. How distant is very distant. Eternity. It's so far away that time will fade away. So, you don't have to worry about us. Perhaps if we turn around and jump out, we'll run into some troublesome accident. If we're too busy, we'll beat ourselves into idiots and accidentally kill ourselves. Lu Xiaoqiu agreed. With their ability to encounter problems, it was very easy for them to encounter some strange and troublesome things. After spending a short time together, she was already used to these things. It was just that her stomach hurt a little. I hope that in this life and in the next life, you can follow your heart and move forward without fear. Yin Nuoxing said softly and smiled at her. Goodbye, Xiaoqiu. She stuck out her tongue cutely. Didn't you say that it's very, very far away? Yes, so that's just my one-sided wish. After all, who doesn't want to see friends with good personalities who could talk well and live well? Yin Nuoxing shrugged and let go of her hand. Then, he turned around and opened the teleportation door. He waved his arm and walked in slowly. I can't say those words. So, I hope that every time we say goodbye, there will be a next time. Yes. Goodbye, Fengling. Lu Xiaoqiu chuckled. I can't think of anything special to say. Then I wish you all the best. Oh, thank you. Chapter 2023. After finishing their business in this cage, they packed up their things and left this place smoothly. They left this world and came back to their senses in the void. However, it was no longer the bottom-level void that they saw when they first entered. From their current position, they could directly see hundreds of world light orbs floating in the void. The largest one in the middle was the battlefield where the three families fought each other. After ascertaining their direction, they teleported once more and promptly returned to the sacred city of profound heaven. However, before they could steady themselves, a tidal wave of demonic sound hummed and crashed into their ears, causing them to shudder and laugh bitterly while covering their ears. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief when they saw the familiar sight. It was still more comfortable in this place. That world, they had never had a good night's sleep ever since they went there, and fighting nonstop against demonized life forms was truly inhumane. Yin Nuoxing kept quiet for a moment after taking a look at the sacred city of profound heaven, before suddenly turning to Hui and the others. Come to think of it, do you remember that light chaser we saw in the sacred city? Oh yes, that light chaser who was left alone and kept mumbling gate and leave. What about it? Hui Gang stretched lazily as he spoke subconsciously, only to realize that something was not right when he was done, and turned to his old friend in shock. Don't tell me you still have something to say? We've already come out, and if you still want to go back, wouldn't you get yourself in trouble if you make 3 visits to the thatched cottage? Others would make 3 visits to the thatched cottage to invite someone to leave, but you're getting yourself in trouble. I'm going to laugh myself to death. That's not it. Yin Nuoxing smiled bitterly, shaking her head and explaining, I've already told Luo Ying about the light chaser, but I didn't tell you guys about it. It's actually a light chaser that Luo Ying created herself and placed in this region of the void like a beacon, with the intention of driving away all who approach this region, so that the chaos concept body wouldn't suddenly break out of its cage and drag in a bunch of clueless children who were watching the show. I see. Then why did it blow up? Yin Washing crossed her arms and said with a serious expression, "Read it out loud. Everyone." Huh? No, wasn't that just a joke? Why did he suddenly take it seriously? Ahem, to be honest, because my consciousness and willpower are mixed with weak origin energy. That energy beacon has two functions. The first is to forcibly throw out all unlucky fellows when the situation is at its most critical, and then impose a seal in the void to prevent any unlucky fellows from being sucked in. The second is to detect the arrival of those from the origin system. And if something has happened inside, but the chaos concept body has yet to successfully escape, the beacon will inform those from the origin system, explode, and return to the main body. It can even allow her to pull part of her consciousness back, and with the cooperation of both inside and outside, they can either suppress that damn thing or directly kill it and throw it back into the void. That's the measure. Measure. It seems that those from the origin system are very good at holding back. And look at that. TSK. We felt that he had missed something. What if it's the second case and nothing has happened inside? Yin Nuashing's cheeks twitched. That's our current situation. Something's not right. It didn't inform me. Yes, it didn't tell me what it was going to do before it blew up, but I went to inform her. Luoing also said that there was a design flaw, and in a hurry, she forgot. Oh, yes, she didn't even open the door for us. If it wasn't for the 15 years, we wouldn't even know what was hidden inside. You people from the origin system are too happy. Yin Nuashing rolled her eyes at him. You're from the origin system now, too. Hui patted his forehead and sighed. I'm happy too, really. What they had experienced in that world was obvious to all. At this time, they were too lazy to talk about it through soul communication, so they simply talked like normal. Shu Qing and Monitor, who were listening on the side, were stunned. Although they didn't quite understand, they always felt that it involved something terrible. In short, they didn't understand, but they were shocked, but they couldn't tell why. We looked back at them and saw their stunned reactions. He was a little helpless. Although it was true that he was about to reveal his cards, he also wanted to see how they would react to the word origins. But according to their situation, they probably didn't have much of a reaction. Sure enough, the impression of the origins system in this era had been blurred to a certain extent. Not to say that it was completely erased, but the people in the Order Void should not be more than 10%. Taking the realm of the gods separately, the realm of the gods itself was created by the gods of origin. There were things about the gods of origin in the legend of creation. They knew from the beginning, but all kinds of strange names. It was only after they really came into contact with the system that they understood a lot of very important things. Oh, in this case, the Void Frontline also had to be taken out. It was because they came into contact with them that they came into contact with the origin system. In that case, the Order Void only knew about the war between order and chaos on the front lines of the Void. They only knew about it, not understood it. The only reason they knew about it was because that fellow from 5 years ago came out and made a ruckus, which was why they knew about it. Aren't you going back? Shu Qing saw that their conversation had come to an end and came forward. Those things, if it's possible, can you do me a favor? Hui snapped his fingers and put a solidified, square dimensional storage in his hand. He smiled and said, "Do me a favor. I'll leave the matter of the report to you. As for us, we'll just stroll around profound, heaven holy city and relax a little. After you're done talking, let us know when we'll gather for the meeting. Of course, if it doesn't work out, just let us know and we'll make other plans." Shu Qing looked at the square, dimensional storage in a daze. He glanced inside and saw almost 10,000 people huddled inside. He immediately understood what the dimensional storage was for. It was as spoils of war. If he took this group of people back, he honestly did not think that the other two factions would make a big fuss over it. Shu Qing looked at them and sighed helplessly. "Okay, I'll try my best to fight for the situation you want. Okay, I'll try my best to fight for it. Then I'll leave it to you." Of course, resting was just an excuse. They were not so tired that they would collapse on the bed after taking a stroll in that world. It was not as if they were boxing with the chaos concept entity, so it was not that serious. They were just leaving for a period of time to see the situation at the front line of the void. You only remembered to ask about the situation at the void front line now? Yin Nuoshing rolled her eyes and looked at him. I've already reported to Yuan Ji that I'm safe and asked about the situation. Everything is normal and nothing happened. The underworld did not come out to cause trouble, and the Abyss Death Mist did not mutate 7 or 8 levels. Everything is going well. It's just that, Hui listened blankly and was about to explain that his brain was not that good. Then perhaps it was really not that good. His brain suddenly stopped working and he changed his words. Words that did not go through his brain popped out his mouth. Why does it sound like you're telling your family that you're not dead after losing contact and telling them what happened? Aren't you just telling your wife that you're safe? Feng immediately stared at him with an expression of extreme horror, causing him to sweat profusely. But thinking about it carefully, this place was profound heaven's sacred city, and there were too many unrelated people. Feng could not possibly send him flying with a firework. Then, he immediately patted Feng's shoulder and used the words that had been processed by his brain without fear of death. Look at you. You've already gotten used to it. You've skipped the dating stage and directly become an old married couple. When are you going to have a wedding? When can I see your wedding? Everyone, this was taking advantage of the fact that this was not a good place to set off fireworks. This was an advanced version of welding detonators and sawing light bulbs. His desire to die had been maxed out to the point of breaking through the sky. We saw that someone was gnashing his teeth, but couldn't do anything to him. Instead, he felt relieved. As he walked forward, he put his arm on Maple's shoulder and sighed. You see, she has been with you for more than a dozen years. Although you have a personality disorder and crush your emotions into pieces only knew about her 5 years ago, you can't deny the fact that she has existed for more than a dozen years. Don't you have a little bit of that? As he spoke, he gently shook Feng. Feng would not reject this kind of slow-paced harassment. Yes, he was very clear. More than 10 epochs, it's almost half the time of the previous epoch. I know it's been a long time. I know. Yin Nuoshing sighed softly. At this time, he did not want to deal with the matter that he joked about earlier. This was because he was having a headache now. It was not the topic itself that gave him a headache, but a headache. Forget it. It was too far to talk about more complicated things. It was better to have a headache about the topic itself. Seeing that Feng did not have any intention to say anything else for a long time, we turned his head and saw that Feng's face was full of confusion, distress, and a little bit of a breakdown. It was not good to say anything more. This place was not a good place to talk about these topics, so there was no need to say more for the time being. Anyway, he did not intend to let this topic go. He would talk about it for 1 epoch, 2 epochs, and even if more than 10 or 20 epochs had passed, he would still nag about it until this guy was willing to do it. If it was useless no matter how much he nagged. He thought for a moment and looked back at the little angel, CU, and the others who were shopping hand in hand. He measured their combat strength and secretly nodded. There were 4 or 5 of them here, and there was 1 in the void front line. There might be a few more. If they could gather 1 or 2 more, they would be able to forcefully tie Feng up. Anyway, he knew that this guy, yes, he knew very well that as long as he could tie Feng up, success would follow naturally. After all, that guy was not afraid of changes. When he thought about things, he would always have a fait accompli, no need to think too much problem in it. So, he just needed to make something a fait accompli, and sooner or later, he would let those girls from Feng's family tie him up. Well, he might have to let them be prepared. Anyway, he was only 1 or 2 steps away from them, and he himself would not resist, or perhaps a little, or something. He could not explain it for now, but he would find a time to tell him. Let's put Feng's distress aside for now and let him fret over it. Let's just sort out the situation of this triple little. We obtained the Dark Scorpion poem and seem to have touched a willpower crystal, which could make up for the willpower that was lacking in the void frontline. Speaking of which, it was helpless. The willpower crystal was actually on par with other powers and forms of power. It was even more prominent in certain stubborn places. After all, it was all about willpower. Those who did not have stubbornness would use the willpower crystal as normal, and it was not much different from other powers. With an additional power, more tricks could be played, and various types of replenishment could be carried out. In short, it was a good thing. If it was someone with extreme stubbornness, he was talking about Feng. Using the willpower crystal would be a little out of the ordinary, and it would definitely cause a major collapse of the void. Then, there was such a power, and they did not have it at the void frontline? After fighting for 5 epochs, they realized that they did not have it? That was strange. The willpower crystal is rarely used, be it in this era or our own, Little Xiao explained. Moreover, while there is nothing wrong with what you said about equal status, there's a prerequisite. The willpower crystal is strenuous and unrewarding in its early stages, and would only be equal in its later stages when it matures. The second reason depends on the individual situation. Whether the willpower crystal is strong or weak, each person's position would be different, and there would be great disparity in their power. The third reason involves the rules of composition. Material life forms that are restricted by race and composition rules have much weaker willpower compared to energy life forms and quasi-energy life forms. That's a problem that can't be helped. We did not know whether to laugh or cry as he slapped the side of his face. That was indeed the case for normal races and material life forms. After all, they were restricted by their bodies and the rules of composition that weave their bodies. Energy life forms did not have such restrictions and could instead strengthen the willpower crystal. After all, energy life forms, self-awareness, and composition all originated from their soul and consciousness and were considerably powerful in themselves. It was a natural gift of life forms and races. All right, that was the problem. Leaving aside the first and second reasons, let's talk about the third reason. The Void frontline had few energy life forms in the first place, and most of them were busy figuring out their own essence, exploring their path, and continuing on their path to the end. They also had to strengthen the use of various order creations on the frontline. Their mission was maxed out, and they did not have much time to add another type of power. Then the core of them. They were busy with the origin energy, especially Feng, who was super multiplied and did not have much time to mess around with the willpower crystal. Therefore, we need the cooperation of another life form that has been using the willpower all along, Little Xiao said. In the past, the Void frontline had been so cooperative. After all, time was limited from the start, and they could not move freely. They just had to do their best to ensure that their path could reach its limit, and they could not even change paths midway. That's right, time is really troublesome. Hui crossed his arms and looked troubled. Then there's a big problem now. This willpower crystal must be used, and the analysis of the order creations should be left to Feng. There is no need for us to get involved. Then the other problem is, if we want to get someone to use it, we have to learn how to use the willpower crystal. Who is the most suitable person? Ling. Oh, that answer is fixed, so is there nothing else? I think if I rush up now. Hui glanced at Feng, who was shopping with the girls of his family. After a day, he finally did not dwell on the matter he mentioned yesterday. Let's not disturb him, not now. So, is there nothing else? There is. Little Xiao nodded slightly, and her gray eyes moved away from Ling. She looked at the girl beside him, who was as cold as ice and snow. Frost. Origin life form. As expected, she is the highest existence among energy life forms. It is normal for her to be among them. By the way, Feng told me that he did not know what to do with the Requiem poem. He could not carry 3 swords, the Staff of Origin and the Staff of Creation. So, is there anyone among the second-generation inheritors who is suitable to use the Requiem poem? Little Xiao thought for a moment and nodded. Yes, but they can't use it. Wei, who had just come to his senses, was stunned. Huh? Why? Sister Luo Ying's sword and brother Ai's sword are both in a soul-damaged state. The second-generation inheritors can't use them. The burden is too great, and they can't bear it. Only Ling, who is an anomaly, has a higher level of origin energy. His energy is close to limitless, and he has the support of the origin energy. Therefore, even if they are soul damaged and can't resonate, he can still wield them freely without any restrictions. Hui was stunned. But why can Little Phoenix use the Netherworld Ruin Sword? Because Blue Phoenix obtained part of the resonate power from Ling. You can think of it as Ling lending his power to Blue Phoenix so that the Netherworld Ruin Sword can cooperate with Blue Phoenix's attack. I heard that you used the Netherworld Ruin Sword before, so you should know. You have interacted with Ling a lot, and the Netherworld Ruin Sword will respond to you in the same way. Little Xiao fixed her gaze on Ling as she spoke, and some confusion flashed across her face. I don't understand. The Netherworld Ruin Sword is the same as the Rhythm of Light and the Requiem poem. They're all soul-damaged. So, why can the Netherworld Ruin Sword still resonate with Ling? It is as if the Netherworld Ruin Sword is subconsciously responding to him even when it is asleep. Oh, because foam is an anomaly. He answered without thinking. He didn't know why the Netherworld Ruin Sword was different from the other two. The Rhythm of Light and the Requiem poem required many conditions to obtain the right to use them, but the Netherworld Ruin Sword didn't seem to have such conditions in the first place. He didn't know why, and he didn't want to think about it. If he thought too much about it, it would be easy to get himself involved. Little Xiao agreed. But it is more likely that the gods did something. Maybe he came into contact with too many fragments. Maybe it was because of this. No, it shouldn't be. He was already using the Netherworld Ruin Sword before he came into contact with the Origin Sword. So, I don't understand. Don't think about it. If you can't figure it out, he probably can't figure it out himself either. Let's put this matter aside for now. Hui shrugged and used his chin to point at Feng and the others who were squeezing through the crowd in front of them. By the way, aren't you going to squeeze through? Little Xiao glanced at Ling and Blue Phoenix beside him. After 2 seconds of silence, she said, "There's not enough space." What? We're being squeezed out. There are too many people. Hui, there were indeed a lot of people in profound Heaven's Sacred City. Right now, they were walking shoulder to shoulder on the streets, cough, cough. But for some reason, her words made him want to laugh. After fishing in profound Heaven's Sacred City for a day and a half, Hui thought that it should be about time. Just as he was about to go to the battlefield of the 3 families to see what was going on, Shu Qing finally arrived. She had a serious expression on her face as she found the place where they were staying in profound Heaven's Sacred City. The matter has been taken care of. In the small living room where they were staying, Shu Qing looked at Feng Ling and Hui with her listless eyes. She said in a low voice, "However, it might be beyond your expectations." "What do you mean? Did they quarrel?" Hui immediately stood up from the sofa and patted his messy robes. "There's no need. There's no need. There's no need for them to quarrel. If they want to quarrel, they can wait until we get there." Shu Qing was stunned. She shook her head. "That's not the case. It's just that the 3 families are going to gather today, and immediately." Everyone in the living room. Yin Nuoxing picked her ears to make sure she wasn't hearing things. "It's really unexpected. It's too fast. It doesn't feel like they've thought it through. Did something happen? Or did the unimportant bargaining chip you brought back become the last straw? I'm not very clear about the details. Yesterday, the Realm Master and the others were discussing something. I guess that might be the real reason. When I saw the Realm Master today, I told her about it. She also told me about what was going to happen. She said, go and invite them. After all, the 3 families will bring people. It's safer with them around." In the original words. Shu Qing took a deep breath. "Anyway, that's the truth. It's going to start soon. Why do I feel like something's wrong?" Hui was a little stunned. "You didn't tell anyone about us? Didn't anyone ask you when you went back yesterday?" "That's impossible." "They did, but we don't know if they heard everything. Yesterday, when the team leaders gathered to report what happened during this period, they mentioned your matter. However, they were mocked by the military governor. He said, since you don't want to say it, then don't say it. Anyway, everyone has their own secrets. Anyway, it's fine as long as you can come back." He even caught people from both families and mocked them. In the original words. Yin Nuoxing and the others. Did no one listen to the truth these days? Shu Qing tilted her head and shrugged. "You hit it too well. It's normal that they don't believe it." "Well, Anyway, we have to go to the meeting now, right? Hui clapped his hands, took a deep breath, and put one hand on his waist. Then let's go. No matter what the situation is, it's fine as long as we achieve the effect we want. They can have their meeting. We'll do our own thing. Let's go. There was definitely something fishy going on when things were out of the ordinary. However, they were absent for a period of time, so they were not very sure what was going on. Anyway, they would know when they went over to take a look. In short, it was impossible that they suddenly gathered together. Everything had a cause and effect. Even if the group of people they brought back was a cause, it would not be a particularly strong cause. They were more convinced that something had been brewing to a certain extent before this incident was triggered. Well, there was no hurry. They did not know now, but they would know later. The location was still in the middle of the 3 battlefields. At the center of the 3 battlefields in the starry sky, a huge floating island had been moved here from somewhere in the starry sky that should have been pushed back and forth by various forces. A thin layer of energy barrier enveloped the floating island. The defense was not very strong, as if the energy barrier was placed here for show. The arrangement on the floating island was very simple. It was just a huge square. It was generous, as if to convey to everyone that saw it that we have not arranged anything, so you can be at ease. 2 chairs were placed in the square for the primordial world's realm master to sit on. Together with an Eru, they could sing an empty city strategy on the spot. In fact, who knew? The heaven mystic world's realm master and more than 10 military governors stood in the starry sky outside the floating island. Behind them stood several small teams that Yin Nuashing and the others had seen before. There were not many people, but from the looks of it, they should have sent out all their elites, regardless of whether the other side was an empty city or an ambush on all sides. They definitely had to bring enough manpower. The outstanding beauty with a pair of dead fish, or rather lifeless eyes, at the head of the group was a young girl. Today, she had changed her attire from the first time they saw her. She was wearing a light armor. The color was a combination of deep purple and black, revealing a faint demonic aura. It was not far from the style of the ghost-faced armor. At first glance, she looked like she was ready to go into battle with a sword. The young girl suddenly turned her gaze and said indifferently, "Everyone is here." The military governors behind her were stunned. Just as they turned their heads, they saw Shu Qing leading a group of people who had arrived late. It was only then that they knew who their boss was waiting for. They even specially set up a venue for this. Hui smacked his lips and looked at the floating island. Then, he used his shoulder to nudge Maple, who had chosen to be in a daze because of the crowd. "See if there's anything around. Do we need to arrange anything extra?" Hearing this, Yin Nuashing raised her eyes and looked ahead. Then, she said, "There's something, but this is normal. Little Qing and the others are all here, so there's no need to waste time." Shu Qing was stunned. She pointed at herself and asked, "Me? No, it's another one. He has the same Qing in his name like you. He's a member of our family." We waved his hand and explained. Then, he turned to look at the floating island in the starry sky. The corner of his mouth twitched into a sinister smile. "A Hongmen banquet, right? I'm afraid you'll have to eat the banquet." The young girl walked over slowly and looked at Maple. "Can we depart?" Yin Nuashing was stunned. "Isn't this your meeting? We're just tagging along. You don't have to ask us." The young girl tilted her head slightly. There was a hint of doubt in her cold eyes. After a while, a look of realization appeared. She softly said, "Oh." Then, she turned to look at everyone and said softly, "Let's go." Looking at the young girl returning to her seat and leading the group to land on the floating island, Yin Nuashing and the others looked at each other for a while. In the end, they all shrugged. They felt that something was not right, but they could not put their finger on it. Chapter 2024. Holding a big meeting, holding a small meeting, repeating the same thing over and over again. In fact, he hated this kind of thing. It was a waste of saliva to talk about it. It was like a winding mountain road. No matter how long it took, the only thing that was hammered on the table was 2 sentences. One side was shouting, "Benefits, benefits, and F*** King benefits. And they are all mine." The other side was shouting, F'CKU. Yes, a meeting that lasted 180 minutes was just these 2 sentences. He translated it and used proper, elegant, and formal words to say, "We had a cordial and friendly conversation. We fully exchanged our views and improved our understanding of each other. However, we have reservations." He used the most common words to translate it again, scram. Therefore, it was better to flip the table. Looking at the venue, if he punched, the meeting that lasted 180 minutes would end in 180 seconds. There was no need to tidy up the speech of 30,000 to 50,000 words. He could wrap it up with 3 sentences. The war between order and chaos is imminent. Set fire to the house and sit in jail for a long time. If you're not decent, I will let you be decent. Yes, it was over. What? Elegant? Oh, forget it. He could be elegant and reserved at other times. Forget about the meeting. Of course, if it was a meeting to discuss the important matters of the future, he would be happy to sit down and chat. There was no need to talk about anything else. For example, right now, the 3 parties were entering the venue one after another. Before they all sat down, the atmosphere was already tense. They were in full combat state. Meeting? My ass. The square was open air, and the wind was leaking. Although the location was very solemn and grand, he felt that the location in the primordial world was 2 centimeters higher. Looking at the group of people he did not know from left to right, and their gloomy expressions, they did not look like they were here for a meeting. Since it was a temporary venue, they didn't pay much attention to the decorations. If there was a seat, they would sit. If there wasn't a seat, they would take out their own benches and squat on the ground. When the 3 parties finished entering the venue, a group of important people gathered in front of the table. The rest of the soldiers stood at the back, vigilantly glancing at the other 2 parties. In such a tense atmosphere, if there was any unusual movement, they would immediately explode. He raised his head and scanned the room. Even though he had already said it, he still had to say it again. There were those he did not know, 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 even those he did not know sitting next to him. TSK. He was not someone who would flip the table so quickly. He would have to wait for them to fart for a while. At the very least, he had to figure out what expired and fake medicine the people of the primordial realm were selling. That person is the peak of the early stage realm lord of the primordial realm. He is still 1 step away from the mid-stage, but it doesn't seem that easy to break through. The girl's voice sounded softly in his ears, startling Yin Nuashing. He turned around and looked at her, sitting on his left. Speaking of which, this position was a little strange. He thought that he would be arranged to sit in a corner, but he did not expect to sit beside her. Even the military governors of the heaven mystic world were scratching their ears and cheeks in confusion. However, since their boss had spoken, they would not object. In any case, it was strange. Especially now that she had taken the initiative to talk to him, it was even more strange. Yin Nuashing looked at the people sitting at the table on their right. He looked at the person sitting in the center, who was wearing a golden battle robe. He squinted his eyes and ignored everyone around him. On the surface, he looked like a man who had just entered middle age. His hair had turned gray early, and his indifferent face had an abnormal thinness that had been washed away by time. His skin was unhealthy pale, as if he was already what? Could it be that his soul seemed to have entered the twilight years, or that his soul had withered? He should have been an immortal, but he seemed to have been continuously worn down by time. Yes, the erosion of time had left traces on his body. There was indeed a thick aura of time around him, and it was an aura that could not be concealed or suppressed at all. It was like a box full of holes that could not be sealed at all. He was a person from the previous era. There was no doubt about it, but he should not be as, mature as Luo, Ying, and the others. He did not know why he was in such a broken state. He looked back at Shi Xiao and Sui Qing. They did not have any reaction. It seemed that they did not know each other. Then, there was nothing to worry about. We had been secretly looking at the Changyuan and Holy Spirit realms. Coincidentally, There were people there who were also secretly looking at him. They swept their gazes over him, puzzled, frowning, and deep in thought, as if they were thinking about something they could not be sure of. This time, it's a bit hasty to invite all of you here. If there is any inconvenience, please forgive us. The sudden voice made the three parties in the field quiet down. The tense atmosphere also subsided slightly. Everyone looked at the middle-aged man at the head of the primordial world. He put his hands on the table and put on a calm and serious expression. He said softly, "This time, we mainly want to discuss the matter between the three of us. We have been fighting in the void for several eras. We have fought countless times and suffered huge losses. It's just a waste of our strength. The void should be united. I'm sure all of you are aware of what happened 5 years ago. A powerful existence descended into the void and wanted to make the countless lives in the void submit to him. Now, that powerful existence has disappeared, but that doesn't mean that they have disappeared. In fact, I can tell all of you with certainty that they're still lurking, waiting for the right time to jump out and take over the entire void." Just listening to the first part of the speech, Yin Nuashing and Hui couldn't help but want to applaud. What he said was true. There was indeed something lurking in the void of order, waiting for an opportunity to take action. The void of order should be united. That was right, but he just put out a condition that he wanted to do something to persuade everyone. The important thing was not to listen to the condition, but to listen to what he wanted to do. Their strength is far beyond our imagination, and they don't care about the lives in the void. Now, the void has been greatly damaged by their attack. If they take action again in the future, no one in the void will be able to stop them. To be honest, if they appear in front of us now, I'm afraid they can only wait to be captured and killed. They are not existences that any of us can resist. We whispered to Phone. Although this guy is telling the truth, I feel that the atmosphere is a little strange. What do you think? Not pure. Their purpose is not pure. Yin Washing picked her ears and whispered softly, "I'm tired of listening to it. I can already guess what he wants to say later. Hand in hand. However, it's just an excuse on the surface. In fact, it has other intentions." The people around were stunned. Hand in hand? What's going on? The girl glanced at them and looked at the middle-aged man. "Cut the crap. What do you want?" The middle-aged man took a light breath. When everyone's attention was on him again, he said softly, "We are now the most powerful collective in the void. However, no one can fight against them alone. Whether it is to protect ourselves or for this void, we have to abandon our prejudices and join forces to fight against the enemy." As soon as he said that, the scene froze. Everyone present, except for the people from the primordial world, widened their eyes and had strange expressions. They began to sneer and mock in their hearts. Abandon prejudices and fight against the enemy together. This is better said than sung. To hell with abandoning prejudices. The three families have been fighting here for countless years. There have been countless deaths and injuries, and they have exhausted countless resources. You want to let this matter go with just a simple sentence of abandoning prejudices? What? After being slapped by you, do I have to kneel and beg you to slap the other side of my face? To be honest, the people present today only had two identities. One was the invader, and the other two were the victims of the invasion. However, after the battle shifted to this place, one of the victims became the accomplice of the other two. The accomplice of the other two was also gnashing their teeth. Sooner or later, they would tear him apart and eat him. Then, the three families were entangled like this for a few eras. Of course, I know that this matter is of great importance, and I can't make a decision immediately. However, I have one more thing to remind everyone. He slowly leaned back in his chair and said indifferently, "They're about to take action. It might be in the near future. If you don't want to see them come to you, surrender, or you won't even have the chance to surrender." He revealed a contemptuous smile and slowly shook his head. His expression said what he wanted to say. Yin Nuashing tilted her head and looked at everyone who was stunned. "Look at what I said, hand in hand. This is what he means. After beating you up, he still has the cheek to say, 'Oh, the enemy is now very dangerous.' Let's reconcile and work together to deal with them first. He even used such a posture. Can you bear it? Someone couldn't help but frown. However, what he said is indeed the truth. That voice 5 years ago had a great impact on countless lives in the void. At that time, the void was in an uproar for a very long time. If this matter is really as he said, then that existence back then is going to take action again. I'm not excusing the primordial world. The fact that they attacked our world is something that can't be washed away and forgotten no matter what. I can't wait to tear them apart. However, if that existence is really, it was normal to be worried. In the face of a great enemy, they temporarily put aside their prejudices and settled the matter of living first. This was very reasonable, very reasonable. There was nothing wrong with it. Internal strife was their internal strife. Family quarrels were also their family disputes. It had nothing to do with outsiders. However, they had a sullen face and an arrogant attitude of "you might as well join us." They didn't look like they were here to discuss matters of life and death. Their attitude really made people have a bad impression of them. This matter is actually very easy to solve. Let me ask you, are you really worried that Ming, that fellow who was nagging in the void that day, will rush over and wash the void? Yin Nuoxing asked indifferently. The people of the heaven mystic world looked at him strangely, but they all nodded. Indeed. However, we have been under pressure from the primordial world for the past few years. We have no time to think about this. If that's the case, Yin Nuoxing made an "oh" sound in his heart. He tilted his head and glanced at Hui. Hui immediately revealed a bright smile in response. Then what? Are you done talking? Hui slowly stood up and broke the silence, causing everyone to be startled and cast their gazes on him. The primordial realm's realm lord also frowned slightly. That's what I mean. Do you have anything you want to ask? Yes, of course. Hui nodded and pointed at his feet. Why don't you explain the mass destruction energy hidden under the soles of our feet first? What do you plan to do with it? The expressions of the people of the primordial world all changed. Hui ignored them and continued. Tisk tisk, a high-level creation of order. Once the energy contained in it explodes, even a low-level primordial beginning will be heavily injured if there is no way to defend against it. Is this what you mean by abandoning prejudices and fighting against a great enemy together? Putting a knife to someone's neck first and then asking them to abandon their prejudices? I know how to do that too. You dare to scheme against us? Suddenly, someone from the two realms jumped up. Hui looked over with anticipation. It was the person he had mentioned before. After not seeing him for so many years, he didn't expect him to be at the peak of the primordial beginning realm. The primordial world realm master narrowed his eyes and glanced at Hui. Then he sneered. Yes, I'm scheming against you. What's wrong? Now that things have come to this, if you don't listen to my kind words and refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit, then I will give you a hard order. He slowly stood up and looked down at everyone with his head slightly raised. His tone was cold. Now, I request that all of you immediately merge with our primordial world. If you can't do it, all of you and the people you brought here today can forget about returning. Are you joking? The person from the two realms couldn't help but sneered. The strength you have is at most equal to us, and you dare to talk nonsense here. At most, we will fight to the death. The middle-aged man shrugged and spread his hands. If that's the case, why didn't I see such a tough side of you when I stepped into the Saint Spirit realm and Changyuan realm last time? Well, there's no need to make the atmosphere so stiff. Hui raised his hand and waved it. We haven't said that we don't agree. Don't be so anxious. The primordial world realm master narrowed his eyes and looked at him. Who are you? Can you speak for the heaven mystic world? Yes. A certain female realm master nodded slightly, causing Yin Nuoxing, who was drinking tea, to be stunned. She looked at her again and began to let her imagination run wild. However, this fellow was quite interesting. He had just shed all pretenses of cordiality, and yet he could still speak calmly, as if victory was in his hands. In the face of a matter of survival, this matter is easy to discuss. Hui scratched his head and smiled foolishly. Well, after we join, what do we have to do first? Also, who do you think is going to come out? How strong are they? When will they come out? If they come out, how should we defend and deal with them? You have to tell us first so that we can prepare. If we don't talk about these, it will be a mess when the time comes. There's no need to talk about abandoning prejudices and cooperating with the defense. Just relying on this thing under our feet won't work. These things will naturally be told to you when you join the primordial world. He glanced at Hui indifferently. No, these are the most important things. If we can't talk about it, how can we cooperate? You have your ideas, and we have ours. If we don't talk about it, what's the point of having a meeting, right? Right? Hui shook his head and said with a smile. The realm master of the primordial realm narrowed his eyes, and his gaze was cold. You talk too much. I've told you what I should tell you. As for the rest, you'll naturally know when you come. Don't let everyone in the void know that it was you who stopped the formation of the joint force, and that it was you who caused the void to suffer a great disaster. Huey's smile faded bit by bit. He lowered his head and sighed. He muttered in a low voice, I already said that this won't work. He took a deep breath and shouted at the top of his lungs, Foam! Clang! The table in front of him flew out with a loud bang, shocking everyone present. Yin Nuoxing stood up, his right hand still maintaining the action of flipping the table and throwing his arm out. He clapped his hands and said to everyone, including the people from the primordial world who were staring coldly at him, Come, look at me. Look at me. Yes, look at me. I have something to announce. I'm not pretending anymore. I'm going to lay all my cards on the table. You people from the primordial world are indeed Habai. Let me add something to you. What you said is actually correct. They are very powerful, but you didn't even reveal any key information. It's not because you don't want to say it, but because... Yin Nuoxing shrugged. You can't say it all. You don't know anything at all. You just cut off half of the information that you eavesdropped and started to blindly lie about it to scare people. But the truth is that you actually managed to scare them. Let me tell you, the guy who shouted at the void 5 years ago was a high-level primordial beginning realm expert. He was much stronger than you think. He didn't come out because he was already dead. The reincarnation road was blown into 3 parts and crushed into pieces. He couldn't be more dead. Then I might as well tell you another piece of news. They will indeed come out again. Yin Nuoxing crossed his arms and sneered. It's better to say that they have never stopped. It's just that you pretended not to know. They are here now. They have always been here. And they will come out in 1.5 eras, or at most 2 eras, as you expected. Do you understand? Do you understand? The people from the Chanyuan realm and the Saint Spirit realm were stunned for a while. They looked at Huey's face back and forth for a while. Finally, they seemed to have confirmed something. They took a deep breath and covered their mouths, almost swallowing their tongues. They immediately slumped in their chairs and buried their faces on the table, muttering, Can't see me, can't see me, can't see me. The gloomy expression of the primordial world's realm lord slowly turned blank. He was a little surprised and doubtful. Who are you? Don't you understand? Or are you still pretending at this moment? We have already come here. Don't you understand what this means? Hui sneered and shook his head helplessly. He raised his hand and snapped his fingers, shouting, Little Qingzi, gather. Throughout the wall. Boom. Figures with tremendous auras descended from the sky and landed in all directions. Then, with a wave of their hands, pillars that were tens of thousands of feet tall were put together like a wall in front of them. Not long after they were fresh and hot from the furnace, a vast amount of energy began to gather, and the energy was aimed at everyone in the field. The energy, which was like the power of heaven, silenced everyone in the field. Under the pressure of the vast energy, they couldn't even let out a fart. So, do you understand now? Hui spread his hands and shrugged. He looked at the middle-aged man in front of him, whose eyes were full of shock and confusion, and continued, If you still want to pretend, then I'll make it clear. Let's make an official announcement. Everyone, we, on behalf of the Void Frontline, greet you. The 2 highest controllers have personally come to your territory and given you enough face. However, we saw you setting fire in the backyard and fanning the flames with your lives. We feel a little annoyed. We asked you to calm down, but you didn't calm down. Do you have to force us to give you face? The one over there with your head buried, don't think that I can't see you. I recognized you a few days ago. Don't think that we're blind to the trouble you've caused. None of you can run away from me. Back then, when we left, we purposely told you guys not to participate in the Void frontlines. We purposely left you guys behind to help stabilize the Void of Order when we weren't around. Yet, you guys were so happy to fight amongst yourselves. Now, you guys are fighting amongst yourselves. Did you have a good time? Can you not be so two-faced? Do you really think it's fun? Do you want to participate or not? No one forced you, right? If you don't agree, we have our own arrangements. But you are pretending? You agreed, but you still want to play dirty? Do you think that we won't turn back to care about you after we leave for 5 years? Do you believe that we can immediately bring people to flatten the Changyuan boundary and the Saint Spirit boundary? At this moment, the Order Void. No world can withstand our round of energy baptism. Idiots who overestimate themselves. The people of the Saint Spirit boundary and the Changyuan boundary suddenly turned pale. They all shrank their necks and did not dare to say a word. They really came back with thousands of troops, this momentum, this aura. Only then did the middle-aged man from the primordial boundary slowly calm down. However, it was useless no matter how calm he was. He knew very well that they were already here, so there was no need to talk about anything. I didn't expect you to really turn back and return to the Order Void. I thought you would always, we really have to thank the underworld for relaxing their suppression on us, allowing us to have free time to come back and deal with the mess here. Hui sneered. He ran to the table in front of him and put one foot on the chair. Your speech just now was quite interesting. Of course, I was referring to the first half. I almost thought that you really wanted to resist. I was so touched, but I lied to you because it was too... Phone, what did you say just now? The aura is so impure that my nose is about to fall off. Filthy thing. Yin Nuashing sat down calmly and waved her hand. Since it has come to this, it's useless to say more. Those who are muddle-headed, wake them up. Those who are muddle-headed, go back to the factory for major repairs. Those who are stupid, have their nerves corrected. Those who tear down the house, push them into the void for a bath. Little Qing Zi, tear it down for me. He was stunned for a moment. He turned around and saw Xiao Shi and Sui Qing walking to him. Xiao Shi put her hand on his shoulder and shook her head at him. He was stunned for a moment, but he soon understood. Let's do it. Hui was also stunned. He scratched his head and asked, What? You know each other? I saw you standing there for a long time, without moving. I thought you didn't know each other. We know each other, but we are not familiar, just acquaintances. Sui Qing said softly. You, inheritors, you are back. You, I thought you were also... The middle-aged man was confused and stunned. After a few seconds, his expression suddenly became strange. He held his head and could not help but laugh crazily. You are also... I knew that you were still alive. I should have known. I should have thought that the origin system would not be destroyed so easily. If you could have done it earlier. Earlier, it's useless to say more. In any case, what you have done is an established fact. There is no escape. You need to be punished. Xiao Shi's eyes glowed with purple gold light. She and Sui Qing looked at each other. The two girls rolled up their sleeves at the same time. After a violent energy explosion, what happened next was not suitable for children. Hui hurriedly put a shield over the place where the energy explosion happened. He hurriedly shouted, Hey, hit that! Hit that! Hit his face! His left face and his right face. Kick his ass. Kick him down. Girls don't need to talk about martial ethics when fighting. Take his eyes. Hit his head. Hit him 3 inches. Aya, don't be afraid to kill him. We have an emergency, life-saving energy tower here. It's fresh and hot. If you kill him, pull him up and continue to hit him. Don't give us face. Hit him with all your might. We won't do it. Hit him with our share. That's it. Twist his head off. Let it be stupid. Yin Nuashing, the scene was tragic. The primordial realm master was pressed into the wall and beaten up. He was embedded in the energy tower and couldn't be pulled out. There were 2 small boot prints on his face. He seemed to have been attacked from both sides. His face was swollen like a gourd. Speaking of gourds, the energy tower was really like a skewer of candied haws. A group of people were embedded in the energy tower from top to bottom and were tied up by energy chains. Anyway, no one inside could resist. Two primordial realms who were close to the peak of the intermediate level rushed in. Even if they were prepared, they couldn't even lift a finger. Anyway, today's matter was just a farce. Everyone was shocked. No one dared to take a deep breath. He suddenly thought of something and turned his head to look at a certain young world lord. She was very calm as she looked at the commotion on the stage. When she sensed his gaze and saw the doubt in his eyes, she stood up and respectfully bowed. "Greetings, Lord Feng, Lord Hui." The cup in Yun Nuoxing's hand fell to the ground. Hui, who was cheering at the side, stopped abruptly. He turned his head stiffly and looked at the calm, young sector master. He could not help but ask, "You really ran away from our home?" "I was already at the front line in the 51st era." The young girl nodded slightly. "In the 52nd era, my home was attacked, and I had no choice but to leave the front line and come back to help. I met you several times, but did not recognize you." "I'm sorry." Yin Nuoxing and Hui. Ever since they came here, they had been using cognitive blur. They did not use it today because they were prepared to lay their cards on the table. So, she suddenly seemed to be asking them about everything today. Was it because, it was a habit? Yin Nuoxing scratched his head. "But that's not right. Didn't you leave a message before we entered? You even said my name accurately. How could you not recognize me? Did you think that I have the same name?" The young sector master's face stiffened. She turned her head stiffly. "So that was your name. I always thought that you had a single word like Lord Hui. At that time, I just thought that you were an anomaly. I subconsciously felt that you were very reliable, so I gave the order. I didn't expect." Yin Nuoxing and Hui. All right, another fellow who called out code names and honorifics so many times that he did not even know his real name. This was normal. Just like what they said, no one would know who they were if they called out their names. However, people would know when they called out their code names. However, this young girl's intuition was not bad. Anomaly. Wasn't he an anomaly? This was the strangest anomaly in the void of order. He was a moving void disaster. Sigh, forget it. Anyway, he was a disaster type. We did not know whether to laugh or cry. He slapped his forehead. This world is too funny, really. Chapter 2025. They had no intention of paying attention to the place that was trapped by the cover and where the sounds of fighting could be heard. Let Xiao Xiao and Sui Qing fight to their heart's content, since that was a matter of their era, and it was reasonable for them to resolve it. They, on the other hand, had to sort out the mess in this region. Back then, due to the urgency of the situation, I left the void front lines without reporting. I felt apologetic, which was why I left everything behind and fought on my own here. The young sector lord used a reporting tone to reply very seriously. Hearing this, Yin Nuoxing and Hui felt rather speechless. "Wow, you idiot. You could have just brought the energy towers back and flipped this place over before going back and squeaking. It's not like it's a big deal. Since you already had the resolve to fight in the void front lines and kept fighting for an era, there's no telling how many years it would have ended even if there was any assessment or period. There's no need to go through so much trouble for such a thing." They actually did not have strict standards for the people in the void front lines, since they were first and foremost living beings and then warriors of order. They would have their own matters, their own homes, and their own families. It was normal for them to have family matters, personal matters, and trouble at the rear. Generally speaking, if there was a need to use the power of the void front lines, a squeak would be enough. Of course, only those who were officially recognized as warriors of order by their standards could bring the power of the void front lines out. Yin Nuoxing had fought in the front lines for an era and was well within that standard, which was why there was no problem. It was also because of this reason that there were so many worlds following behind the void front line. They were all brought here by the Order Warriors, and there were the frontline worlds that were pieced together by the Order Warriors. When there was no mission for the time being, it would be a consolation to be able to turn around and walk back home. Things like this were actually allowed, and he didn't feel that there was anything wrong with it. He just didn't expect that she would unarm herself without a second word and deal with it by herself. Absolutely not. The warriors of order can mobilize the power of the void frontlines when they need it. Even if there's an emergency and there's no time to report, they could just come back and fill in the blanks. It's not like it's an unreasonable place that operates rigidly according to rules. Or rather, the Void Frontline's greatest mission is to deal with the forces of the underworld and chaos. There's no time for that at all, Hui said with a bitter smile. The young female sector master shrunk her neck and lowered her head. But I've already felt deeply blessed when I was able to break through to the Yuansha realm at the Void Frontlines, so I'm sorry. All right, this was a strict and stubborn fellow. If she had brought a batch of energy towers back with her when she returned in the 52nd era, they probably wouldn't have anything to do today. That Yuansha realm would probably have been crushed in the cradle in the 52nd era. Anyway, when they were fighting with the underworld, it didn't make much of a difference whether they had 10 million more energy towers or 10 million fewer. 1 or 2 more Yuansha realm experts did not make much of a difference. He was still brooding over the matter of 20 high-tier elites charging into the void frontlines. It was also because he missed it very much that he deeply knew that the situation at that time could not have been any better. If Maple did not fight with his life on the line, the void frontlines might have been gone just like that. It was already considered a victory to be able to retain the void frontlines after that battle. We scratched his head. All right, let's not talk about what happened back then. What are your plans from now on? From now on, the young female sector master rolled her eyes and thought for a while. I want to return to the void frontlines after I've tidied up the world we exist in. Then, Lord Hui, I have a request approved. Take your time. There's no rush. There's still some time. Thank you for approving my request without hesitation, but I'll just say it. I want to tidy up our world and bring those who are willing to go to the void frontlines to help. We might need to make space for some of the world lights, but there shouldn't be too many of them. That's why we know. I can guess what you want to say the moment you open your mouth. Hui patted his head, not knowing whether to laugh or cry, and waved his hand nonchalantly. TSK, there are places everywhere in the front lines. Just find a place to put them. By the way, you've left the front lines for a few eras, and there's a huge change there. You might have to be new recruits for a short while and have to get used to it. Laws, creations, the entire front lines has changed greatly since you left. Oh, by the way, these are new void coordinates. Don't go to the wrong place. The young female sector master nodded solemnly. I'm already mentally prepared. After they were done talking, she went to a corner and pulled her family aside to talk about something. She also realized that she did not have to care about what happened after that, and might as well go and deal with the aftermath. The battle that lasted for 4 eras was finally over, and there were many troublesome matters to be dealt with. She would not feel at ease go to the void frontlines if she did not deal with them. Yin Nuashing and Hui walked up to the smoke-billowing barrier. The latter put away the barrier that was accidentally damaged, while the former brushed away the dust. Everyone poked their heads out to take a look inside, before quickly covering their eyes. Damn it, they could no longer tell if the person on the ground was a single person or a group of people. Wow, that's brutal. I-Ching couldn't help but cover her mouth when she saw this scene. She looked at the 2 girls who were having fun slapping each other and couldn't help but say, I didn't know that the 2 of them were so violent. TSK, do you think the people of the Origins faction are small fries? Our family's heirs make you look harmless purely because there's a void-level calamity poking at the side, and you're already used to it. His ruckus is much bigger than an army-level heirs. Just throw that thing up, and other levels of things will be over in a flash, and there's no need to tidy up. Hui waved his hand and said, unsurprised. I-Ching carefully turned her head and saw that Lord Feng's cheeks were twitching slightly, but he was too lazy to retort. She could not help but stick out her tongue. Lord Feng was silently admitting that he was too lazy to tidy up his weird identity. But that was indeed the case with a void-level calamity poking at the top. Everything else looked insignificant. Speaking of which, I've been away for dozens of days. I wonder if anyone at the Void Frontlines has figured out a way to defeat Chaos Lord Feng's shadow. There should be a strategy, right? Could it be that he was still being beaten up in the tower? A few Order warriors came forward and carefully collected the wreckage on the ground. They hurriedly used the energy tower for rescue to clean it up, restoring the tens of thousands of parts in a living hundreds of people. They then escorted the unimportant people to the side, leaving the Yuan-Chu realm master who had been beaten into a pulp on the ground. They then left silently. "Hey, are you still alive?" Looking at the primordial realm master who was sitting on the ground in a daze with his head down, Hui squatted down and poked his shoulder. "Can you still stand up? Don't tell me you've been beaten up so badly that even your soul is dead. I see that you're full of a rotten aura from inside out, and I feel that everything is very wrong." "What's wrong?" "The last era has passed, and your heart has been pierced back and forth millions of times? Or was your soul taken to the void of chaos and ravaged back and forth for a few eras, and when you came back, your hope was already shattered and you're delirious?" A certain dim-witted realm master didn't seem to hear his words. He just lowered his head and didn't even want to breathe. He didn't have any reaction even when Hui was fiddling with him, and this made him feel distressed. He turned around and shouted, "Phone, come over and take a look." Yin Nuoxing glanced at the guy who was sitting on the ground as if his soul had been sucked away. She thought for a while and said, "There's no hope. Give up. Goodbye." Everyone. 3 consecutive abandonments. It seemed that there was really no hope for him. There's nothing sadder than a dead heart. Although I don't know what's going on, it's true. Even his spirit and soul are about to dim. Yin Nuoxing exhaled lightly and looked at Shi Xiao and the others. Who is he? Who was he at your time? The ruler of a world. He was one of the few worlds that were close to the continent of origin, Sui Qing explained calmly. Although he wasn't someone who could freely come and go from the continent of origin, most of the venerated gods liked to be lively. At that time, no one would trespass on the continent of origin, so they were allowed to stay nearby. After all, it wasn't a world that was deliberately moved here. It was just an origin world that was born on the spot. Although I don't know what happened, but from the looks of it, it should be related to the venerated gods and the passing of that era. The heavenly god of origin was a spiritual pillar for you and the warriors of order of that era. Although it wasn't a religion, it was almost at that level. Yin Nuoxing glanced at the man on the ground. Things related to them would be slightly exaggerated, especially the matter of their death. You and most of the warriors of order were actually fine. Perhaps they were mentally prepared, or perhaps they didn't have the time to care about themselves. By the time they reacted, it might have been a long time ago, or they might have become numb to it. But for some very, very special people, it might really be the extent of their spiritual pillar collapsing. Unlike you, who could still hold on after hearing about their deaths. Speaking of which, he had also repeatedly mentioned the heavenly god of origin just now. The possibility of this guess is indeed very high. Hui listened and stroked his chin. So, he was a warrior of order? But he wasn't a warrior of order who was stationed at the base all year round. Young nodded slightly in response to this question. If you like it, you fight. If you don't like it, you don't fight. There were many people back then. Yin Nuoxing and Hui. This was a battle that depended on one's mood. If one was in a good mood, one would rush forward and fight. If one was in a bad mood, one would sigh and return to one's nest to sleep when one saw the rain and did nothing. There seemed to be nothing to say. They could only complain about this. Forget it, let's not complain. After all, he had once fought from the perspective of order. Now that he had done something wrong, it was fine to just beat him up as punishment. There was no need to throw a meteorite at his head. Furthermore, looking at how depressed he was to the point that his soul fire was about to be pinched out by himself, he would probably kill himself if he was left sitting here for a period of time. How should we deal with this? We turned around and looked at Maple. There's also the huge primordial realm. Its influence seems to be quite big. Right, Lil Qingzi? Yes, after all, it's good. There are no specific statistics. Anyway, it controls many worlds. I Ching nodded. If we announce the disbandment rashly, it will be quite troublesome to clean up. It's mainly about cleaning up the trouble. Furthermore, apart from here, there's still large and small battles at the borders of the 3 factions. Some of the worlds that have been involved are probably already angry. These parts are even more difficult to clean up. For the time being, let's keep the name of the primordial realm. Find someone to take over. Then, we just have to maintain a relatively stable large-scale battle. For those who are really angry, try to coordinate. It shouldn't be difficult to coordinate if the hatred isn't great. If it's too serious, it won't be coordinated at all. Even if we force them not to fight now, they will fight in the future. The idea of dying of old age and letting the hatred be replaced is a fantasy to the immortals. Yin Nuashing crossed his arms and sighed. Furthermore, hatred can be passed down. What about the inheritance? Anyway, let's settle the matter of the 3 clans fighting first, and let them all stop fighting. Although I don't think that this shout can make the places affected by them stop fighting immediately, we can only forcefully intervene first, and then slowly deal with the rest. Those who want to reconcile will naturally stop fighting after hearing about the ceasefire. Those who don't want to will find other ways to cause trouble. As he spoke, he looked at the silent people from the Longwall realm and the Saint Spirit realm who wanted to run but didn't dare to. He nudged Hui with his shoulder. What are you waiting for? Go and deal with the mess left behind by history. Oh, I almost forgot about that. Hui immediately came back to his senses. He rolled up his sleeves and walked towards the people from the 2 realms while cursing. He shrugged. He knew about the matter of the Longwall realm and the Saint Spirit realm helping to maintain the peace at the rear. It was after the front line of this generation's void officially gained a foothold. Later on, when they saw the chaos and the order void and determined that the troublemakers were related to the people from the previous generation, they thought that the 2 factions had encountered an unstoppable force and couldn't suppress them. They didn't expect them to turn around and get involved. That was really ridiculous. To be honest, he wanted to seize the opportunity to crack such a two-faced person in such a dangerous matter. But forget it. He would let Hui deal with this matter. As for him, if he dealt with this matter, the resentment in his stomach would definitely be out of his control. When the time came, he would do many unnecessary things. I Ching scratched his head and stopped tormenting a certain realm master who was in a daze. He pointed at him. Lord Feng, what about him? Him. Yin Nuashing glanced at a certain person who was completely disheartened and sighed. She then turned to young master and the others. Let you deal with him? Or do you need my help? To be honest, I don't know how to deal with him. Young master's pretty face frowned slightly and sighed. If the previous world still exists, perhaps it would send him back. But now there might be nothing left. If we can't make a decision based on the past, why don't we deal with him according to the current rules of order? I Ching scratched his head. But Lord Feng, we don't have a plan to deal with these people at the moment. That's right. We've been busy fighting against the chaos and the underworld. Who would have thought that we would one day return to the order void to deal with such trivial matters like capturing people? I don't know how to deal with this either. Yin Nuashing also scratched her head and made a distressed sound in her throat. After a heavy sigh, she spread her hands. I don't know. If we just kill him on the battlefield, everything would be over. But look at him now. Forget it. I'll take him to her and deal with him for her. They have the right to deal with him. Seeing Lord Feng carrying a certain dumbfounded realm lord and running towards the realm lord of the heavenly mystical world, I Ching didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He sighed. Well, it's appropriate to deal with the invaders after they've been defeated by them. At most, they'll be cheering for the young realm lord who's also a warrior of order. They'll be helping to dismantle and dismantle. She'll have a lot of things to do after this. Although she'll return to the void frontline after she's done it, she probably won't be able to return for a while. She'll know how difficult it is to deal with the large-scale aftermath after doing it once. After about 4 eras, the flames of war that had spread across dozens of void regions finally came to an end after Hui scolded the people of the 2 worlds and nagged the young female sector lord about the handling of the primordial world situation. Then, the situation entered the next stage, the aftermath stage. The remaining matters that needed to be dealt with were all in this stage. The beginning of this matter was very normal. After 4 eras, it ended in a ridiculous way. Although there were some twists and turns in the middle, the ending was still going according to their script. The curtains fell peacefully, and the war ended peacefully. Various places, big and small, beat the gong to retreat, and some continued to fight to the death. These were all expected. As for the specific matters, to put it very irresponsibly, they were all thrown to the young realm lord to deal with. After some discussion, they decided to merge the primordial world and the heavenly mystical world into one. From a certain point of view, it was really a certain fool's wish. It was really worth celebrating, although the core was a little different and he didn't have the time to respond. It sounded very troublesome to deal with, but in fact, it wasn't too big of a problem. The core personnel of the primordial world happened to be on this island. They could directly catch all of them in one fell swoop. As for the remaining soldiers of the primordial world, if they were just recruited, they could return to where they came from. If they were the main personnel, there was no problem. Now, the primordial world didn't have a single primordial realm expert, so they couldn't make any waves. As for these captured captives, it was better for the young realm lord to deal with them. As for the matter of the Saint Spirit world and the Chanyuan world, he didn't know what to say. To put it in a very subjective way, he didn't have a good impression of these two worlds. It was close to the edge of indifference and hatred. As for the reason, there was one reason in this era. Since he knew that they were stirring up trouble, his good impression of them dropped. The second reason was the reason from the primordial age. They were so happy when they charged into the realm of the gods. Their loud laughter made him want to knock their teeth out. It was a pity that he and his companions were suppressing world-class beings at that time. Although he had settled the matter at the end, he still could not raise the favorability points. He would not do something like that after being slapped. He would not do it. He really would not do it. He did not use the source collapse to prove that he had restrained himself. He did not bring the resentment of the ancient times to this time. After all, that was something that would happen in the future. It was not worthwhile to settle it at this time. He was not a fool. In any case, the two major powers of this era were two-faced bastards, and the god realm had suffered a huge blow in the future because of them. He felt that this was as far as his favorability level would go, and it was basically impossible for it to go any higher. How could he possibly forget what had happened in the past before they did everything in their power to atone for their sins? How could he possibly fall in love with her just like that? It was impossible. It was impossible for him to ever fall in love with her. Those bastards should have stayed with the underworld. Fine, it wasn't that serious. The underworld had jumped to the side of the chaos. The Chanyuan world and the Saint Spirit world were still in order. They were more or less normal. So forget it. What was the point of him worrying about this? If he kept worrying about it, he wouldn't be able to hold back his grudge. He was going to take out the rhythm of light and the poem of darkness. After settling this matter, Hui was still cursing. Let him curse to his heart's content. If Hui shouted his name, he would definitely hand over the rhythm of light. He was going to create a portal to return to the front lines of the void, but Xiao Xiao and Sui Qing pulled him back. Wait, Ling. He said he left something behind. Xiao Xiao pulled him back and stared at the void. It might be something left behind. Let's go take a look. He actually left something behind. Yin Nuashing was stunned for a moment. It should be something related to the previous era. He didn't expect that person to not take it out in the end. The order creation hidden under this floating island was just an ordinary high-level order creation. Well, it was taken out from Luo Ying's world. He recognized it. Where's that thing hidden? In the primordial world. On the way to the primordial world, they told him about the situation. It seemed that it was said after the beating. He didn't know what kind of mentality that foolish realm master had to say this. Was it to atone for his crime? Or did he feel that he was going to die? So he simply said it to prevent the secret from being buried forever? Or was it a secret that was left behind for the origin world? He didn't know. He didn't understand. The guy who went crazy because of the collapse of his spiritual pillar and because of the emergence of his spiritual pillar suffered another spiritual shock. The mental stimulation from before and after had most likely made him even crazier. He didn't know what the former was thinking. Actually, there was still a way to cure him. However, if he was as crazy as him and still caused trouble in the world of order, it was better to give him a quick death. But in the end, They didn't know what the foolish realm master wanted to do. Maybe the impure voice he heard did contain some sincerity? Maybe the three families united to resist the underworld? Even though his thoughts might not be pure, such thoughts did exist. Who knew what they were? The primordial realm's lair was actually behind this battlefield, in a hidden world of light. Before they rushed in, they had imagined what this place would look like. For example, it would be filled with the remains of various items from the previous era, or it would be decorated in a dazzling and magnificent manner. However, the reality was that when they rushed in, they only saw a dying starry sky. The starlight had been completely extinguished, and even the space had shrunk to the size of a few light years. In the dark space, there were only broken rules, filled with all kinds of chaotic and dilapidated auras. It was as if everything left in the last scene of the previous era had been stored in this space. The starry sky that no longer existed reverberated with this symphony of the shattered void and countless fragments mixed together. They could vaguely see a broken figure sitting here, holding a severely damaged instrument in his hand, playing the music stubbornly. It was not pleasant to the ears, and it was a bit noisy. What remained here was as if only endless sorrow and grief were left. If his discovery of the soul-suppressing ring was said to be an item called hope left behind by the previous era, then what was left behind in this space should be despair. It was all the sounds of despair left behind after the destruction of this world. Yin Nuoxing turned his head to look at Xiao Shi and Sui Qing. They were suddenly in a trance. It was not strange. The sounds in this place were all left behind from the previous era, including the origin rules. However, they had all been shattered. He did not know where this space once existed. Perhaps it was the center of the battlefield, or perhaps it was the world where the realm lord once lived. Everything in the past had turned into smoke and dust in the void. Everything had been annihilated, including all his remaining emotions. Perhaps this was the source that made him like that. Little star, I found the hidden space. Let's go take a look. See, wave her hand and grab his arm with both hands. She hurriedly flew forward, causing him to be stunned. Not long after, he was dragged in front of a dim energy seal, and there were still remnants of her aura on it. It was probably caused by her when she was tossing around just now. Ah, a three-dimensional array. Yin Nuoxing fiddled with the seal for a while. When he saw that it was changing shape, he understood. He turned his head helplessly and looked at Xiao Shi, who was walking over. Well, I can only leave it to you. Xiao Shi tilted his head and suddenly thought of something. Do you want me to go back and teach you? I want to, but I don't have that much time. Yin Nuoxing covered his left cheek and sighed. There are still many things to do. Let's see what the situation is after we solve those things. However, I am still very interested in the new array form. After all, he covered his cheek and smiled. A new power form means that we can set off new and bigger fireworks. How happy is that? The girls. This guy is hopeless. His head is full of fireworks. Chapter 2026. In fact, it was his own fault that he was treated as a disaster-type person. No normal person would only think about fireworks, and even bigger fireworks all day long. It was no wonder that everyone gave him the impression that he was a void-level disaster and a disaster-type person. For example, right now he was stretching his neck to look at the space that little hour was slowly opening, hoping that he could find a dozen more useful fireworks. The seal is very old. 1/3 of the structure has collapsed. It is impossible to completely open the space in one go. Little Hour said softly and moved a part of the purple-gold all-shaped magic circle in front of him. The rooted purple-gold all dragged the space in front of him and tore it apart bit by bit. It has to be opened slowly. The seal is very old. Can you roughly see when the seal was left? Yin Nuoxing was a little dazed when he heard that. It was definitely old. At least 16 years ago. After all, it was something from the previous era. Little Hour narrowed his eyes and was silent for a while. His arm, that was maintaining the magic circle, trembled slightly. His voice was filled with a little shock. 16, 17 years ago. Everyone present was silent. Yin Nuashing's sweat dripped down his face. He could not help but mumble to himself, "Oh, this timing is a little dangerous." "Oh, dangerous, dangerous." Little Hour turned his head to look at him. He was also a little hesitant. "Do you want to continue opening it?" "Yes, of course." Yin Nuashing wiped away the sweat on his face and nodded. "Anything related to the previous era, we have to figure it out no matter what." I'm just betting. What if it's something that can be used, right? Even if it is, all right. See you, Blue Phoenix, get ready. Get ready to sink this starry sky into nothingness. Schwang schwang, when I'm fishing something out of it, if you hear me squeak, immediately freeze me and the thing inside into ice lumps. Then run away quickly. Well, that's it. If I win the bet, everyone will be happy. If I lose, I will just squeak. This is nothing. The little angel covered his mouth. The golden Mei Mao glanced at his face and sighed helplessly. You should stop talking. With her mouth covered, Yin Nuashing shrugged and said through her soul transmission, I'm just preparing for the worst. Don't worry, I've already told Hui and the others. They'll be here in a while. Just in case, they'll be able to hold the fort. Let's take a look at the things inside first. The space that was torn apart in front of them immediately caved in after they stabilized, turning into a purple-gold energy vortex that kept surging towards the inside. After that, she tilted her head and nodded at him. It's opened. However, the amount of energy it can withstand at one time is not large. You must be careful. Yin Nuashing waved her hand, and the space beside her split open. Thousands of chains of order immediately pierced into the purple-gold vortex in front of them. Relying on the automatic guidance of energy and objects, the chains of order randomly swept through the vortex. Not long after entering the vortex, Yin Nuashing felt that she had touched something, and she immediately came to her senses. What did you touch? Come, get ready. Seeing that they had all entered battle mode, Yin Nuashing took a deep breath and pulled back the chains of order that were binding something bit by bit. Half a minute later, a huge curved surface slowly appeared in the purple-gold vortex. Look, Siyu whispered. It can't be a ball again, right? Everyone, according to the way the gods of origin did things, this was very likely. Everyone in the origin system liked to make balls. If it was not a ball, it was a spiral. Occasionally, there would be some exceptions, but they would also make some strange shapes. Crack. The sound of something crashing into something suddenly came from the starry sky. Yin Nuashing looked at the vortex and tugged on the chains of order in her hand. Then, she looked at Little Hour helplessly. It's stuck. Can you open the door a little wider? Little Hour looked at the energy vortex with a strained expression. Then, she carefully moved the formation that had drawn out a door that was thousands of feet in size and continued to tear the space apart. The structure is fragile. I'm worried that it will collapse. Let's try it. Yin Nuashing tugged on the chains of order and watched as the door expanded bit by bit. After watching for a while, he would tug on the door, and that unknown object would get stuck again if it moved. After tugging on the door until it was almost 10,000 feet in size, and the edges were already on the verge of collapsing, Yin Nuashing tugged on the door again and immediately said, Hey, it's done. Little Hour stopped and looked around. Then, she shook her head in resignation. Ching, help me stabilize the space. It's going to collapse soon. The black and swarthy curved surface continued to enlarge in everyone's eyes. The part behind it suddenly expanded by several times, or even dozens of times. It was as if it was just a small needle, but after a few tugs, they realized that it was just a needle on top of the pillar that supported the sky. Its size had once again occupied the entire door. Looking at how slowly it was squeezing out, everyone felt a little conflicted. As soon as this thing squeezed its head out, Sui Qing's expression changed slightly. Then, she lowered her head and fell into deep thought. Seeing her immediate reaction, Yin Nuashing also became excited, and the speed of the dragging increased. About 2 minutes later, the huge thing was completely dragged out and placed in the starry sky. He fiddled with it for a while, and finally placed it vertically. As mentioned earlier, it was an oval-shaped pillar with a thin top and a dozen times its size at the bottom. It was dark and swarthy, and its surface was painted with thin golden and blue lines from the top all the way down, weaving countless patterns and finally converging into a strange pattern at the bottom. There's no need to ask, it must be some kind of pattern left behind by a certain primordial god that made people feel inexplicable but yet awesome. Yin Nuashing stared at the 10,000 feet wide and 3 to 4 times taller oval pillar for a while, then turned to Sui Qing. Sui Qing and Sui Qing were still frowning as they pondered. They seemed to have an impression of it, but they couldn't remember it at the moment. Do you have any clues? I can only confirm that it is a creation of the gods. It's just that I can't remember where it is. We don't seem to have seen it on the defense line. Sui Qing shook her head and covered her forehead. Does that mean it could be something in the continent of origin? Yin Nuashing tilted his head 90 degrees and kept looking at the pillar, but he couldn't see anything special about it. After confirming that they wouldn't be able to recognize it for a while, he put the pillar aside and said, "Well, let's bring it back and let Sui Feng and the others take a look. They might know something about it." Silly Feng does know a little more. Sui Qing nodded lightly. Seeing that they were curious to hear more, she continued. His teacher often brought him to many places to see the other creations of order and origin. Among the second generation, he should be the one who knows the most about the creations left behind by the Venerables, but that's all he knows. Yin Nuashing scratched his head and reminded them. "I'll continue. You guys watch." The second time he tried to drag something out, he didn't get stuck. However, this time, he felt that he had pulled out something strange, because it was very small. No, it was very small compared to the huge door. It was only the size of a grain of rice. When he quickly pulled the thing into his hand, he could clearly see what it was. A book. A book? Yin Nuashing held the book and looked at it. The cover was only white. He then gently opened it. A group of girls immediately rushed over and looked at the book in his hand expectantly. When he flipped to the first page, they were all stunned. The anticipation in their eyes turned into doubt. Yin Nuashing was also stunned for a moment. He continued to flip the pages. After a while, he could not help but say, "It's a wordless book. There should be something special about it." See, you reminded. Little star, use origin energy to stimulate it. Maybe you can see something. Yin Nuashing thought for a moment and nodded. 196 types of origin energy immediately surged into the book. He waited for half a minute with a solemn and sacred expression. Then, he opened the book again as they waited expectantly. Once again, they were all dumbfounded. It's still a wordless book. See, you scratched his head and muttered. It shouldn't be. Little star, try another method? Even if you say another method. Yin Nuashing smiled bitterly and continued to use other methods to torment the book. Origin energy, origin law, order, origin energy, sins of the world, that's all. But it still did not move. I'm out of ideas. Yin Nuashing tilted his head and smiled bitterly. He handed the book to the girls. Why don't you try it? While they were curiously doing all kinds of strange experiments on the book, he continued to take things out of the dimension. But what he got later made him feel a little strange. The things he got later were a lot of broken copper and iron, mixed with countless fragments, wreckage that had completely lost its energy, and more remains of unknown creations. It was as if he had walked into the ruins of a battlefield. There were a huge number of remains of creations in all directions. Each of the remains told of a fierce battle. There were so many of them that he had piled up the remains into a small hill in the starry sky, and it was not done yet. It was as if they had imagined before they came here. They would see a starry sky full of wreckage when they entered the door, but those things were all kept in this dimension. Xiao Xiao and Sui Qing handed the wordless book to Siyu and the girls. They stepped forward to help sift through the pile of wreckage. They were indeed completely useless on the outside, but it was hard to say. The Fortress of Origin was also a pile of scrap metal, and they had toiled for many years. Perhaps these wreckage, but with zero energy, the origin law has collapsed. The wreckage is just an empty shell. It may be difficult to find anything useful. Xiao Xiao sighed softly. Sui Qing sorted through the pile of wreckage in front of her. She tilted her head slightly and looked at Feng Ling. It's okay. We have a conceptual dimension. Let's pack them up and bring them back for Feng Ling to see if they are useful. Okay. Although he did not find a pile of orbs like he did with the soul-suppressing ring, he did find a pile of wreckage, a pile of inexplicable objects, an elliptical pillar, a wordless book. He was almost unable to continue. But with the mindset that he would not let go of even the wreckage, he very patiently continued to dig for things. He had been throwing rubbish out here for half an hour. His hands were a little weak, his soul was trembling, and he felt as if he had instantly returned to the time when he was picking up rubbish in the Cloud Continent. Yes, he was also picking up origin relics back then. He was almost in despair. But actually, it was not completely unacceptable. Just like how this part of the starry sky was filled with a lot of residual noises after destruction, he had long guessed that this might be a space that was carried away after a battle had ended. It was the ruins of a battlefield. The time that Small mentioned made him feel even more serious. This might be a ruin that was formed near the end of the battle, and all the remains might be remains that were formed near the end of the battle. If their energy still remained, he might be able to sense something not very good. Just as he was muttering, he suddenly felt that he had dug out a complete item. It was a square box that was about the size of 2 palms, and he hurriedly shouted, "Xiao Xiao, come and take a look at this. I don't know what you've dug out." Xiao Xiao threw the wreckage aside and immediately understood. She took a look at the item in his hand and immediately understood. Her eyes filled with nostalgia and fear. It's a little toy made by the gods, a mechanism that requires the use of origin energy to gradually unlock it. However, there are many ways to unlock it, and no matter which way you go, you will reach the end. It's just that every intersection has a different way of dealing with it. Due to the slight difference in energy, it will lead you to a different direction. It's said that there are a total of 38 million ways to unlock it, but we have only tried less than 10 million ways. Brother AI, Sister Luo Ying, and the others have explored a total of 15 million ways, and all the inheritors have explored less than 20 million ways. Yin Nuashing. Oh, well, you can have it. I don't want to play with it. Xiao Xiao took the box, tilted her head, and continued. It seems that only the god of destruction in the land of origin has figured out all the ways to unlock it. Don't you want to give it a try? No. Yin Nuashing smiled bitterly and held his head. Although he was quite patient when it came to dealing with these things, in this situation his brain was not enough, and if he played with this thing that was definitely going to drive him crazy, he would definitely throw it out like a brick one day. Speaking of which, she actually came up with all the ways to unlock the frightening numbers. How free was she? That emotionless fellow. Sigh. So what's the use of this thing? But he was still a little curious about how this thing came to be. I don't think they'll come up with something that's purely for entertainment. It's one of the little items that the gods use to train our control of the origin energy. Xiao Zhao's body trembled as she spoke. Her expression changed slightly, and a faint fear appeared in her eyes again. In the past, if you don't meet the training quota, you have to play with it for half a year as a punishment. If you don't solve it 10,000 times, the time will be doubled, and the number of times will be doubled. Yin Nuashing. That's a memory that I definitely don't want to recall. Looking at this girl's expression, I guess she must have been tortured by it back then. Although the effect is obvious, it's really torturous. Moreover, most of the effect is forced out because of the time. Yin Nuashing. It can't be helped. If you don't meet the quota, the time and number of times will be doubled, and your brain won't be able to take it. This is probably the result of activating the potential that will burst out in the face of death. Subconsciously fiddling with the square box in her hand, Xiao Xiao sighed softly and put it away carefully. Putting away her memories, she whispered to him, "Call me if there's anything. Ching, and I will clean up the wreckage." After that, you may need to use the concept level space to see what they're used for. If possible, repair them. Yin Nuashing heard her and turned to look at the 3 things that had been turned into 3 mountains. His cheeks twitched. Let's bring them back first. There's too much of them. Perhaps it was because the world of the Realm Lord was close to the continent of origin, so he could see these toys, books, and other things that were only used in daily life. This made him feel that the strange oval pillar might be a building located in the continent of origin. However, he had seen different things in the continent of origin during his 3 visits, so it was reasonable that he could not recognize it. Speaking of which, the buildings on the continent of origin did not seem to be so big. As he continued to move out, he could only find rubbish, and even more rubbish. Some were even chaotic energy clusters that had solidified into crystals. They had been quiet for many years, which further convinced him that this place was a battlefield. He did not know under what circumstances the Realm Lord had taken away all the rubbish from the battlefield. When nothing else could be dragged out by the chains of order, Yin Nuoxing went in and took a look around. After making sure that everything was cleared, he slipped out and took inventory outside. In short, he got a lot of strange things that he could not name. He put aside the oval pillar, a book, and a toy that he could recognize, and ignored them. All that was left was the pile of scrap metal that filled the starry sky. The amount was so huge that it was comparable to the wreckage of the Fort of Origin. Sui Qing cleaned it up for a while before she announced that she was done with it. She stuffed all of them into a world orb used for storage and threw it to him. When she turned around, she looked gloomy, perhaps because she remembered the annoying time when she cleaned up the wreckage of the Fort of Origin. How many more dimensions like this are hidden? Siyu suddenly said softly as the dimension slowly closed. Perhaps each dimension hides a past that has been drowned by time and disappeared. Yin Nuoxing and the others were silent. 771 paths, after more than 20 eras, where would they be floating in the void now? What changes had happened to them? Given the characteristics of the origin energy, it was not surprising that they had changed. Finding them was a long and difficult task, and they might have even been found by those bastards on the other side, but they had to look for them. Back then, they definitely wanted us to look for them by chance, so they threw them all over the void. Yin Nuoxing could not help but sigh. After all, there was not a single place left intact after the battle back then. Instead of piling them all up in one place and getting wiped out, it was better to let them float outside. If they were lucky, they might actually find them. The resonance and attraction between the origin energy, the probability of them finding them was 50-50. He had said that they left these things behind to increase the difficulty of the battle. Although it was definitely not their intention, the truth was sigh. Anyway, his mood now was just like the void. He did not know how to express it. After they packed up a lot of things, they left the dead starry sky. As soon as they appeared, before they could see the situation in front of them clearly, they saw Hui holding 2 large shields the size of city gates. There were thousands of energy towers beside him. The energy towers were all gathering energy. He shouted at them, "Hey, who are you? Tell me your name." Yin Nuoxing was stunned for a moment. Then, he waved his hand and said, it's okay. The alarm has been lifted. Put away." Hui glanced at his face and understood. He waved his hand and asked little Qingzi and the others to pack up. Then, he quickly went over and asked, "How is it? Did you find something good? Is there anything left behind by the origin gods?" At the mention of this, everyone's mood became heavy, and they all turned their gazes in all directions. Yin Nuoxing covered his face and muttered in a muffled voice, "Ugh, it is indeed something related to them, but this, how should I put it?" "Oh, then it seems like you don't know what to say, right? I understand. Hui reacted 5 minutes in advance. He put his arm on little Qingzi's shoulder and said casually, "Don't tell me you found another pile of garbage or debris?" The girls all smiled bitterly and turned their heads. Yin Nuoxing rolled his eyes and looked at him. "Unfortunately, you were right." Hui was speechless. Due to various indescribable reasons, Yin Nuoxing felt that he would be exhausted if he continued to talk about it. Anyway, when they returned to the front line of the void and threw the fragments into the conceptual space, everyone would come over. He might as well tell him the details then. So, when he saw Huey's awkward expression, he quickly changed the topic. "Let's not talk about this first. We'll talk about it when we get back. How is the Chanyuan sector and the Saint Spirit sector? Is it settled? The only reason I didn't smash their faces into a pancake with my shield is because they are creatures of order. We also rolled his eyes. What else can we do? Teach them a lesson and let them go. Otherwise, what else can we do? Promises are all bullshit. If there is a precedent, there will be a follow-up. I don't think they will be obedient after we let them go. That bunch of two-faced bastards, they can do whatever they want in the void when we're not around. It makes me want to kill them. Yin Nuashing looked at Hao Rin's angry face and could not help but sigh. Ah, you are finally not the naive, sweet, and sunny young man of the past. Now you are gritting your teeth and thinking about how to kill them once and for all. What kind of image did I have in your mind before? At the mention of this, Yin Nuashing had a lot to say. She quickly stretched out her hand and counted with her fingers. Naive, sunny all day long, saying that the world is beautiful. These kinds of words are always unrealistic on a large scale. When you see your enemies acting pitiful, you will feel pity, and in the end, you will have a headache. When people do something terrible for a reason, you will be half swayed, and in the end, you will still have to be stabbed. There are too many such things to count. It gives me a headache. Wait, was I like this before? Yes. Yin Nuashing let out a long sigh as he crossed his arms and shook his head. The world is beautiful, and you are standing in front of the sun. No, you are a sun, but you don't look at the world from a bird's eye view. You only release light, and you never care about the shadow under your light. Perhaps because you are too bright, the God Realm had no choice but to give you the most deadly thing so that we can balance each other out. Well, balance is a joke, but that's what it means. Again. But it's a good thing that you're self-aware and know what kind of person you are. You didn't say anything when I was stabbing you in the back. You're not a stubborn idiot. Otherwise, the two of us would definitely quarrel. We'll quarrel every day. In the end, I'll definitely be the one to fight with you. Hui trembled and looked at Maple carefully. That is not necessary, right? That is not necessary. You know that I hate that kind of idiot the most. You're just one step away from that kind of idiot, but in the end, you did not take that step. So, we have been standing together for more than a dozen eras. Yin Nuashing shrugged and sighed as she dragged everyone forward. Time, it has been more than a dozen eras. We have all changed. I have become even stranger. I have become neither human nor ghost. You have also changed. You are no longer the naive young man you used to be, but you were not wrong in the past. The indecisiveness you showed in the face of those things, the indecision you showed time and time again, is the proof of your humanity. But Hui, if you put too much of it on the surface, you will not be able to go on forever. Yin Nuashing continued to sigh. Now, you have buried all of it in the bottom of your heart to restrain yourself. You know who to show your humanity to, and you know how to differentiate between people. That is enough. If there is a what if, you still have me. Don't worry. You make it sound like you don't have any humanity. You are such a contradictory person. Hui rolled his eyes. Yin Nuashing thought for a while and replied, As for me, yes, how should I put it? I'm not sure. I am lacking in humanity. I know myself very well. I know that I will never be like you. In any case, I am a disaster. So, nothing in this world matters to me. After all, disasters are neutral. I digress. So, the Chanyuan domain and the Saint Spirit domain. Hui, who was frowning in distress, suddenly came back to his senses. They put them back. Then, on the surface, they agreed to continue doing what they did before, taking care of the Order Void when we're not around. But I don't dare to believe it. I told that little girl from the mysterious sky world, and also arranged for the Order Warriors to take care of the Order Void occasionally. Do you want me to destroy them? This is too early. Let's wait and see. Chapter 2027. All in all, the 4 eras of internal strife in the Order Void had finally come to a perfect end. It seemed to have come to a perfect end. As for whether or not there were any roots of trouble left behind, and whether or not some two-faced people would try to cause trouble again, he wasn't too sure. In any case, after the first time, he had to be on guard against it. Since the Void Patrol squad was also roaming around the void, he decided to leave some nodes along the way to observe and monitor the situation in the Order Void. For now, this was the only way to deal with it. What else could he do? Let Maple go and flatten those bastards? Maple would definitely do that. Definitely. And if he rushed over with such thoughts, the war would probably start and end on the same day, leaving two devastated worlds behind. Phew. He really wanted to do that, but there was really no need to. After all, it was the power of the Order Realm. Yes, the power of the Order Realm. How many times had he used that reason to persuade himself? And so had that idiot Maple. Both of them would pinch their noses and pinch their necks whenever they used that reason, and it would be normal for them to strangle themselves to death one day, because there was no other reason other than that. Come to think of it, it was commendable that a certain Calamity member did not go overboard and destroy the Void. He thought that Maple would not care about anything else and blow up the other side with source collapse when he flipped the table, and he was even prepared to avoid being caught in the explosion. He did not expect that nothing would happen in the end. Maple knew how irritated the Order Void was when it stirred up trouble, and how calm it would be when the curtains fell. He really did not expect that Maple could hold him back in the end. Well, there was no need to care about those things for the time being. There were no surprises or dangers on this trip, and the curtains were drawn to a smooth end. It was a cause for celebration, and Little Green could put aside the things he had recorded. After they returned to the Void front lines, they had more things to do, and some of them were brought back from this trip. Oh, right. Ning Fei's two friends had also returned to where they had been stationed, saying that they would return to the front lines after Mr. Feng was done with the Level 2 and Level 3 energy towers. After that, they would continue to wander around the Void. After passing through the Void portal and returning to the frontline Node 0, they saw a light blue figure standing not far from the gate. It seemed that the figure had been waiting here for a while, waiting for them to come back. When the figure saw them coming out of the portal, it couldn't help but welcome them happily. Lord Feng, Lord Hui, welcome back. Yin Nuoxing raised her hand and greeted Yuan Ji naturally. Oh, thank you for looking after the house. Speaking of which, this girl seemed to have been avoiding him for a while. When she woke up, she was still avoiding him. The last time they went to see the inheritance, she was also avoiding him. It had only been a while, and suddenly, she stopped avoiding him. Well, now that there were so many people around, it was not a good idea to look at her affectionately. He needed to find a chance to talk to the girl. What about Sui Feng and the others? If they have time, ask them to go to the conceptual space. You can tell them that your goddess has moved a lot of scrap metal and is busy with something. Everyone. The moment these words came out, it sounded like they were collecting junk. Their minds began to reverberate with cries like buying scrap metal. They had already imagined the scene of them sitting down and starting to collect scrap metal with clanking sounds. When she heard the latter part, Jing Yuanji knew that this matter shouldn't be delayed. She nodded and turned to leave. After leaving the front lines of the Void for some time, well, there was no change at all. Dazzling fireworks were still being set off, and there were still very few people left in the nodes. However, most of them were not wandering the Void this time, but were probably fighting his shadow in the Temple of Origins. The observer space was also unscathed, and the sound of tides still reverberated across the world. It was just that compared to when it was at its peak, the sea of energy that had been viciously spat upon trembled and appeared much weaker. Yin Nuoxing asked everyone to go to the conceptual space and wait for Sui Feng and the others. She stared blankly at the sea of energy for a while and muttered to herself, it's still heavily injured. It still needs some time to recover. The energy source that was thrown in had been completely dismantled. Most of the components were used to alter and strengthen the origin. Of course, that part of the energy could not be used to restore the sea of energy, and there was not much left for the sea to grow. But the presence seems to be thicker. Well, it seems to be changing all the time, the little angel said beside him. Yes, after all, the alteration of the origin has been completed. But after that, it would have to replace what was already there. In that process, the growth of the sea of energy would also slow down because it would prioritize replacing what was already there. It would only continue to grow after that. Oh, the little angel also rummaged through the sea of energy. Where are those special world lights of yours? Well, let me see. Yin Nuashing looked at the sea of energy for a while before suddenly pointing at a spot. In the colorful sea of energy, a bright light was flashing, leaving spots of light on the surface of the sea. But it was not easy to identify. There's one over there. The rest have sunk to the bottom of the sea. The growth situation has changed twice since we left, but it will still take some time before it reaches the upper limit of the origin law. Well, it seems that we won't have to intervene for the time being. Let's see how it goes after a while. Yin Nuashing exhaled softly as she held the little girl's hand and flew towards the conceptual space in the observer space. When they arrived at the conceptual space, Xiao Xiao and the others had already helped to clear out a space. She even used a magic circle to encircle a large area in the space. Everyone else was gathered around, ready to watch the show. Hui turned and saw Feng and Hao coming towards him. "How's the sea of energy?" he asked casually. "It's all good, but it will take some time. To truly recover, we still have to wait for the next energy source to be completed. It can't be rushed. Although I think that even after the energy source is healed, the sea of energy would still be exhausted after it recovers, so everyone could not help laughing bitterly at that. There was no way to fix that. According to what he said before, every creation in the Void Frontline would need the participation of the sea of energy if they wanted to improve. Every recovery and strengthening was to better squeeze it dry the next time. While it may not have been his intention, that was the truth. It was like harvesting leeks, and they would have cursed if they were the sea of energy. Yin Nuashing shrugged, waved his hand towards the space that Xiao Xiao vacated, and poured out a large pile of scrap metal that he had just put away. All kinds of loud noises shook the sky, making Hui and the others grimace in pain and cover their ears. When the noises settled down and they opened their eyes again, there was already a huge mountain in front of them, which was made up of all kinds of debris and scrap metal, covering hundreds of miles in width. The scene of fighting against Fortress of Origin many years ago suddenly surged into his mind, making him gasp for breath and almost pass out. Well, I just remembered that my bones are itching for a beating in the tower. I'm going. Yin Nuashing reached out to grab Hui, who was about to run out, and dragged him before her, grinning viciously at the pale-faced guardian. "You're one of us now. It's up to you and I to clean up the trash. Don't even think about running away." "Wow, that's a big fuss. Brother Feng, where did you go this time? Where did you get such a huge pile of wreckage?" It didn't take long for Jing Yuanji to bring Sui Feng and Brother Lei to the scene. Seeing the massive pile of wreckage in front of them, they held their breath for half a second. Sui Feng couldn't help but murmur, and judging from the wreckage, it's not a safe demolition this time. It's a total destruction. Did you guys find the ruins of a battlefield? It's a long story, but it's pretty much what you think. But before we talk about this pile of wreckage, Yin Nuashing let go of the trembling guardian and raised her hand to greet Sui Feng and Brother Lei, who were walking towards her. She took a light breath and said slowly, "Luoing asked me to say hi to you." Sui Feng stumbled and almost fell to the ground. He looked up at Yin Nuashing in a daze. "Sister Luoing? You guys, what happened?" Brother Lei was also dumbfounded when he saw how dizzy the young man was. Yin Nuashing shrugged and quickly told him what happened. She shrugged and sighed. "Well, that's what happened. She misses you guys a lot, but each of you has your own reasons, so there's nothing we can do." Sui Feng and Brother Lei fell silent. Brother Lei crossed his arms and sighed, while Brother Lei shed tears. Brother Lei sniffled and walked up to Yin Nuashing. Suddenly, Brother Lei put his hands on Yin Nuashing's shoulders. Sui Feng looked at Yin Nuashing seriously and sighed. "Brother Feng, next time when you go out, why don't you let us know? I believe that you can easily find the rest of the brothers and sisters." Yin Nuashing, "Little turtle, it's really a coincidence this time, and it's also a coincidence that we didn't fight. Have you forgotten that the last time I went out, I slapped each other with AI Hanyan Chaos Concept Body. I was half a step away from killing myself. Although, that's right, Suifeng's cheeks trembled, and he immediately scratched his head with a bitter smile. He looked at his sister with envy. I also want to see Sister Luo Ying and the others. Yin Nuoshing sighed and patted the young man's shoulder. Next time. Next time, if we go out again, we'll bring all of you along. That way, you can meet the brothers and sisters you miss so much. Then, if we fight with the Chaos Concept Body, we can all go back to the spiritual temple to join in the fun. Ah, we won't be lonely. How happy would that be? Everyone was speechless. Logically speaking, it would have been better if such a thing had happened in the beginning. It would have been better if it didn't happen later. Of course, it was just a thought. They knew what would happen if they met the first-generation inheritor again. Luo Ying might just be an accident. The sudden news made Suifeng and Brother Lei feel emotional and sad. Although they had told themselves countless times to forget that era and move forward, they still couldn't help but recall the past when the news came like a bolt from the blue. No one could escape from it. Sister Luo Ying, is she all right? Suifeng looked at Brother Feng and asked in a low voice. Yin Nuoshing thought for a moment, and her face twitched. She's fine. She still has the strength to torture me. She looks very energetic. I still have her teeth marks on my shoulder. Suifeng and Brother Lei. It seems that she's fine. Her situation should be better than Brother AI's, but, just like how Brother Feng and the others could guess the ending, they also knew what Sister Luo Ying would face in the end. If time could reach that time, could they? Who knew? Who knew if there would be such an opportunity? The gloomy mood lasted for a while. They quickly came back to their senses and looked at the pile of trash. So this pile of trash is incidental? Yin Nuoshing nodded and pointed at the oval-shaped pillar. Look at that pillar first. Do you recognize it? Pillar. Suifeng looked up at the pillar for a while, then tilted his head and looked at it again. After a while, he suddenly clapped his hands and said, "Oh, this thing." Seeing him like this, everyone laughed in their hearts. Looks like there's hope. Suifeng walked up and asked, "What is it?" Oh, you only asked after bringing it back. Seems like you don't remember it, sister." Suifeng suddenly burst into laughter. He crossed his arms and shook his head. But after a while, he was stunned. "Sister, how can you forget this thing? Or have you never seen it before? That can't be. You should know it." But it doesn't matter if you haven't seen it before. Even if you can't recognize this thing, can't you recognize the familiar pattern that you don't understand? If Sister Bing knows about this, you'll be dragged away to be trained for a whole day. Suifeng's words had an immediate effect. Suifeng's body trembled violently. Her indifferent face was immediately filled with fear and horror. She subconsciously took a few steps back. Yin Nuoshing saw her stumbling and almost bumping into him. He hurriedly reached out to hold her and sighed. "Calm down. Your honorable gods are still shopping in the reincarnation. No one could train you." Everyone was speechless. Although it was the truth, it felt inappropriate to say it out like this. Well, looking at Suiqing's frightened look, Yin Nuoshing had a feeling that those guys really liked to torment this group of second-generation inheritors. He did not know whether he was unlucky or, forget it. He would just treat it as their interaction. However, he had heard of this Sister Ice God, many times. If he remembered correctly, it seemed to be the origin god of Frost's inheritance. It seemed that she was also a bit of a playboy. The next time he went to the land of origin, he had to be careful and avoid her. He handed Suifeng to Xiao Xiao. Seeing Suifeng looking at the pillar with interest, he asked, "So, what is this pillar?" "Pillar? Oh, no, this is not a pillar. This is its closed state." Suifeng shrugged and said as he walked forward, "It is unexpected that this thing is still here. It was placed in Sister Bing's house, which means it is in the land of origin. According to the situation of the final battle, there should not be anything left in the land of origin." Perhaps it was because that person's world was close to the land of origin that he was lucky enough to catch these things when they floated out. "Brother Feng, come and help me." Yin Nuoshing nodded and followed him to the top of the oval-shaped pillar. Sui Feng patted the top of the pillar twice and used his own energy to draw across there. He nodded to Feng and said, "Well, this is the place. Use Sister Bing's energy to cut it down." "You want me to cut her creation?" "Oh, it's fine." Sui Feng waved his hand carelessly. "This is the correct way to open it. Trust me. Do you think I will let you cut a living creation?" Yin Nuoxing glanced at the young man's face. He frowned and took out the light rhythm. Cold energy gathered on his body and condensed on the light rhythm. He stood on the top of the pillar and aimed with his sword for a while. Then he turned around and asked, "This place?" "Aye, that's it. That's right. Take aim. Don't be hasty and don't tremble. Once you cut it down, life or death will depend on fate. Success or failure will depend on the heavens." Crack! As he stabbed the oval-shaped pillar. The oval-shaped pillar seemed to have come to life after a long period of hibernation and freezing. The energy inside kept surging, and there was a huge movement. The blue and golden lines on the pillar also lit up a little bit. Everyone could not help but close their eyes, sweating profusely. They subconsciously wanted to run away. It was one of the observer's laws. Energy, light, fireworks. But since they did not feel any energy riot, it was more like a dormant energy slowly coming to life and then releasing energy bit by bit, so they did not run away. When the light was a little less dazzling, they hurriedly opened their eyes and looked ahead. Under the reflection of the blue-gold light, the sky of this concept-level space had changed. The blue sky seemed to have been washed by ice and snow, clean and transparent, as if one could see the whole cast of stars in this place. The golden light embellished it with a sacred brilliance, making it look like a huge, transparent gem. A cold breeze, as if from a world of ice and snow in the winter, quietly replaced the air of this space. Subconsciously, everyone shivered. This breath is too cold, so cold. Oh, it's 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 so cold. The oval-shaped pillar trembled slightly, and 5 bright, white lights appeared on the surface of the pillar. Then, they slowly separated under their gaze. The 5 curved surfaces slowly opened and slowly descended. A colder energy that could freeze the laws of nature gushed out like a blue cloud and quietly spread across this space, spreading the extremely cold breath to every corner. At this time, Sui Qing suddenly understood. Mei Mao trembled slightly. "It's it. I remember now. It's actually it." You can't recognize it when it closes?" We could not help but ridicule. Sui Qing smiled bitterly. "The creation of the eternally frozen earth will never melt." Sister Bing said that the frozen earth did not have the concept of melting from the beginning. These creations buried deep in the frozen earth are also bound to the frozen earth. So, we have never seen Sister Bing's creations close and did not recognize it first. After that, she turned to Shuang Shuang. "Shuang Shuang, you're lucky. This thing is left for you." Shuang Shuang blinked her dark blue Mei Mao and tilted her head. "Left for me? Yes, but it's not literally left for you. Instead, the most suitable one here is you who has inherited Sister Bing's power. The maple silk counts. We can use it too. Although the effect is not obvious, it can still have some effect. That means any air can use it, right?" We scratched his head. "So what's the effect of this thing?" "It's one of the little things that the gods use to help us master the origin energy." "Well, it's not really a little thing. Is Sister Bing's domain creation after all?" Sui Qing shrugged. After waiting for a moment and seeing that the pillar had almost fully bloomed like a flower, she said, "Sister Bing's domain is about to take shape. There will be an ice storm. Let's get out, or we will be frozen." The golden blue light that covered the sky gradually faded into a mottled white. The cold wind swept and froze thousands of miles. Snowflakes and ice crystals began to appear in the air, giving it a pure and flawless texture. Snow gradually fell from the sky and covered the world. The space that little hour had prepared in advance to store the garbage had also been. Garbage. Xiao Shi blurted out the words in a daze, causing everyone to be startled. They turned their heads and saw an ice mountain rising from the ground. That thick and heavy ice mountain had a large pile of wreckage mixed in the ice mountain. Everyone was silent for a moment. Brother Lay could not help but say, "We still have to chisel the ice to dig it out. Ugh, I hope Sister Bing's domain does not have concept-level power. Otherwise, I'm afraid we won't be able to chisel it open even if our hands are swollen." "Don't worry. Only the body has a weak concept-level power. The domain does not have Sister Bing's concept-level power," Sui Qing said calmly. "The domain is actually a foundation for that creation. In the concept-level space, it should be able to play a similar role to its original level." Sister Qing, you're quite knowledgeable." Sui Qing's pretty face paled slightly, as if she recalled some unbearable memory. She looked like she wanted to cry, but had no tears. "In the past, I used to be caught. When we were still in the land of origin, Sister Bing would catch me every few days. That's why I thought it was strange that Sister Bing couldn't recognize Sister Bing's creation." Sui Feng walked back with his hair turned into an ice sculpture. His eyebrows were covered in frost. Looking at his miserable state, it was clear that he was accidentally injured by the energy that gushed out when the creation was opened. We looked at him and could not help but be startled. "Where's Feng? This is actually that. It's like that. It's like that. I can't help it. After all, it's little brother Feng. That kind of appearance is very... Wait, don't do it. We're all from the land of origin. Let's be friendly. I've already made myself clear. Little brother Feng, of course it's like that. Sister Sui, don't. Ouch, 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 ouch. My ears are going to fall off." Well, everyone knew what was going on. A certain observer and an origin relic. It was self-evident what would happen when these two conditions were combined. However, they were still annoyed by Sui Feng's riddles. Let's go take a look first." We glanced at the young man who was being scolded by Sui Qing and shook his head. Feng's condition is quite good. It shouldn't be a big deal. In front of them was a world covered in silver and frozen for thousands of miles. Faint cold air mixed with snowflakes would appear out of thin air, fluttering in the air for a while before flying away in all directions with the wind. The space became much brighter, and the light had a transparent, reflective, and dazzling texture like ice crystals. A dozen or so icebergs had been erected in the space that was just a flat land. The largest iceberg in the middle was the one that froze the pile of trash. They were already wondering how to blow up the iceberg and safely release the trash. This was a solidified primeval realm, a primeval realm that was spread out through creation. The cold air, the long and narrow glacial valleys, the gentle hills piled with snow, and the snow and ice plants and trees rooted in the snow. Looking at their crystal-clear appearance, they seemed to have really grown out of the snow and could survive as long as there was ice and snow. These were all real things. The primeval realm forcibly projected itself into a space by twisting the rules and concepts of the world, temporarily replacing this space. Therefore, they had just seen this world of ice and snow condense and take shape bit by bit. But then again, is this the origin domain or the primeval domain? We asked doubtfully. It should be the origin domain, right? No, that's not it. This is just the primeval domain, but it's countless times more perfect than the primeval domain that we all condense. Sister Bing's origin domain. That's awesome. It's not something that could be compared to switching scenes like this. Brother Lay waved his hand vigorously. The real origin domain is the same as the chaos domain of the chaos concept body. It's a deadly skill that can empty the space just by being cast. For example, when the god of destruction cast the origin domain. Let me think. Right? It's just like when we see Brother Feng switch between the laws, order, and energy form. The senses are similar, but of course, there's definitely a difference. Everyone was speechless. That crazy, destructive, dominating, and suppressing power that oppresses the world, it's going to kill the gods. So you could not help but say, then, when Little Star grasps the destruction domain and uses the laws, order, and energy form, everyone shuddered. If something big happened, they would be the first to suffer, followed by the underworld. This domain has expanded this space by around 30 times, and it's not a place we know. We shaded his eyes as he looked into the distance. The presence of ice and snow is so thick. I can't sense the distance. Shuang Shuang, hurry up and see where your little star is. Shuang Shuang hurriedly focused, her eyes widening as she stared ahead, and only cried out in delight after about 2 minutes. Found it. It's little star. This way. Shuang Shuang did not lead them to the center of the world of ice and snow, as they had expected. Instead, they headed towards the northeast corner, passing over dark blue icebergs, a snowy land where ice crystal plants were growing wildly, and a glacier where gales were blowing at 7,000 meters per second. Finally, they found a certain observer on an icy plain that was so smooth that it could be used as a mirror. The icy plain was very spacious, surrounded by undulating icebergs and peaks as if encircled into a basin. At the center, there was a huge lotus flower that was covered in blue and gold patterns, as if cast from ice crystals. Its largest radius was estimated to be 10,000 feet, with layers upon layers of ice lotuses that were at least 300 meters tall. He was lying on the pistil at the very center, his body surrounded by a circle of dark blue light that emanated bone-chilling coldness. His eyes were tightly shut, as if he was sleeping. We had just landed when he saw the scene, and immediately sighed. Look, he's probably been dragged inside to be tortured again. Phone, oh phone. Sigh, forget it. Go in peace. I'll keep an eye on the void front line. With that, he even put his palms together with a compassionate look. Everyone thought that a certain someone would send him flying with a kick when he woke up. Chapter 2028. Circling around a certain fellow who had been tormented by the heavenly god of origin and their relics daily, everyone was relieved after confirming that he was fine and had just fallen asleep. After some thought, they decided to leave the ice sculpture beside him. For one, this place was the center of the snowy, divine domain, her natural domain. Having her here would help her familiarize herself with the power of origin and also this domain. For another, she could watch over him to prevent someone from sneaking around and causing trouble. Then, everyone else returned to the largest iceberg they had just seen. They had to start cleaning up the pile of debris. Of course, before facing the most difficult stage of cleaning up the trash, they still had to think about how to dig it out. Although this was not the origin domain, nor did it have the power of a concept, its hardness was definitely not to be trifled with. Look at their Leda. He was very imposing. He had accumulated his strength and was about to charge. Silver Dragon. Bro Lay cried out, turning into a silver meteor that traveled millions of miles per second without slowing down as he crashed into the center of the iceberg. Silver thunderbolts accompanied by the power of origin bellowed loudly, and a ring of silver energy blasted out along with the rolling impact. The energy that was the main body of the explosion bloomed into a dazzling silver sun on the spot. The booming sound of energy impact reverberated wildly across the glacier mountains, splashing out 70 to 80 echoes as if thousands of thunderbolts were dancing. Even Frost, who was watching from afar, could not help but say through the soul message, so bright. The ice field trembled for more than a minute before stopping. When the dust and smoke cleared and the snow fluttered, everyone poked their heads out to look. They saw Bro Lay still charging forward with his right fist extended to block the iceberg before him. His energy dissipated to signal the end of the attack, but the iceberg before him was still as smooth as a mirror and even flickered. The surface of the mirror reflected Bro Lay's image, and his facial features were contorted as if he was clenching his teeth in pain. So painful. What should we do if we can't cut through it? Seeing that even Brother Lay, who had maxed out his attack power, was at his wit's end, the others scratched their heads as well. As expected of the heavenly god of Origin's domain, it was still so powerful even after being reactivated after more than a dozen eras. It seemed that they could only wait for someone to wake up. But even if his explosive attack could break the ice, it would probably scatter the things inside, right? Ah, wait a moment. Shuang Shuang suddenly appeared in front of them and walked to the foot of the iceberg. Fragments of ice crystals slowly floated out from her body. She looked at the iceberg in front of her and stared hard at it. Mei Mao stared fiercely at it, her deep blue eyes reflecting the appearance of the iceberg. But if one looked closely, they would find that the iceberg reflected in her eyes did not have the remains sealed inside. It was as if her sight could only capture this iceberg. Then, the energy of origin spread out from her body, condensing into a miraculous aura like a domain, causing everyone to be slightly startled. When this aura covered the surrounding space, she blinked her eyes, and in the next second, the iceberg in front of them suddenly disappeared. All right, that's enough. Shuang Shuang happily waved at everyone. Everyone stared blankly at the huge iceberg in front of them that disappeared just like that. They rubbed their eyes hard, and then looked at the smiling Shuang Shuang with admiration. Brole shook his swollen right hand and could not help but say, "Sister Shuang Shuang, if you had told me earlier, I would not have gone up and punched it." Shuang Shuang stuck out her tongue a little embarrassedly. "Right after you hit it, I just felt that I could do it." "Yeah." Brole did not know whether to laugh or cry. All right, the timing was not right. Or should he say that the speed at which she grasped Sister Bing's power was getting faster and faster? She must have removed a part of the territory just now. She must have grasped Sister Bing's power well. In other words, she had just mastered that power. After tormenting the iceberg, Shuang Shuang returned to Little Star's side. Everyone swarmed around the rubbish mountain in front of them. The expansion of Blizzard's divine realm had expanded the dimension a lot. Now, they should be able to put down the seemingly unfriendly rubbish mountain. Due to the previous experience of dealing with the wreckage of the Fortress of Origin, it did not take much effort to turn the towering pile of rubbish into a pile of wreckage on the ice field. It was as thick as a piece of land. If one did not look from the side, one would not know how thick the ice field was. Let's put it this way. Standing on top of the pile of wreckage, the icebergs next to it were all shorter. Why do I feel like there are more and more of them? We couldn't help but stare at the pile of rubble. He rubbed his eyes, and in the blink of an eye, he suddenly saw the space tremble. A large pile of wreckage suddenly appeared out of thin air and piled up on the ground. The place just now was definitely a flat pile of wreckage. Definitely. There was no way there was such a small mountain. He was not blind. Oh my God, this thing is haunted. No. It's not haunted. Sui Feng waved his hand and explained, "It's a dimension, a hidden dimension. Some of the wreckage's storage dimension could not withstand the torment and broke open, and the things inside were poured out. I think there should only be a small part of this pile of wreckage." But because of the passage of time, the energy was gradually depleted and the dimensional structure became fragile. At this time, the dimension would be broken open with just a simple knock. When we were tormenting the wreckage just now, we can't be sure how many dimensions we have torn apart, and there may be more hidden dimensions here, so there should be more wreckage in the end. All right, this is a blind opening. We don't know when there will be a pile of wreckage. Ping ling pang lang. Before they could finish their words, they heard a series of loud noises. Everyone grimaced and turned their heads, only to see that a pillar that was at least 100 miles long suddenly appeared on the flat ground. It was straight, thick, blue, crystallized, and had a metallic luster. It poked into the ground like a spear pointing straight at the sky. Straight? No, that didn't seem to be the case. Taking a closer look at the whole thing, he could see a faint arc. It didn't look like a pillar, but more like, something with a curved surface. In short, it was very spacious, and there seemed to be tear marks on the top and bottom of it, proving that it should have been torn off from something. It was a fragment. "Oh, Blue Phoenix, come and help me." Siyu stood under the huge object and held it up with both hands. She had a difficult expression on her face. It suddenly jumped out. Everyone only started circling it after they put it down. Initially, they thought that it would take them a long time before they could get any information from it. However, Sui Feng clapped his hands and snapped his fingers. "Ah, this belongs to Sister Bing." Sui Feng exclaimed. "Oh, this belongs to Sister Bing." Hearing her brother's exclamation, Sui-Ching looked at the blue, crystal-like surface and suddenly understood. It's the ring of frost. We also perked up. It sounded very cold. What is it? What's it for? Sui-Ching raised her finger and pointed to the sky. It's in Sister Bing's eternally frozen earth. It's a creation that hangs in the sky. As for its purpose, it's a creation that Sister Bing uses to decorate the Yuanshi domain. You can understand it if you think about it. Everyone let out a long sigh. That was a deadly thing. However, there was only a fragment of this deadly thing left. Even its energy had dissipated. It was the first time they saw an origin relic with no energy left. Apart from the fortress of origin that was safely dismantled, it was also the first time they saw an origin relic that was dismantled in such a miserable state. It was hard to imagine what kind of battle it was during that time, but it's hard to fix it with only a pile of fragments. The energy has already dissipated, Sui Feng said as he touched his chin. All of a sudden, he sensed his elder sister's disdainful look. Seeing his elder sister pointing upwards, he sighed and shook her head. Sui Feng blushed at once. Oh, with the concept level space, we can put it back even if there's only one fragment left. Although it might take a long time. She suddenly understood what was going on. She shouted through the soul transmission. Shuang Shuang, you have a present. A circle. Shuang Shuang was stunned. Huh, but it's still broken. Maybe Little Star will have to wake up and fix it for you. Shuang Shuang continued. Huh? Oh wait, don't be so agitated. Sui Feng wiped the cold sweat from his forehead. He looked at his sister and said, Sister, do the math. If there's only one fragment left, and you want to put it back, just drain the sea of energy that we saw at its peak a few hundred times. Sui-Ching nodded slightly and said calmly, He will go crazy. Everyone was speechless. That was more than crazy. Siyu shivered and continued shouting. Shuang Shuang, don't tell this to Little Star. Something bad will happen. We glanced at Siyu, who was very agitated through the soul transmission. He scratched his head and looked at Sui-Ching. You just said to decorate the primeval realm. That thing can be decorated? Of course. Sui-Ching nodded and explained. As mentioned before, the primeval realm is a realm space that is forcibly projected by distorting all rules and concepts. It has been kept in our bodies. It's not something that exists. You won't be able to touch it. Seeing Huijun touching himself up and down, Sui-Ching shook her head. It's scattered in our soul, divinity, divine right, rules, and energy. It's scattered in our structure. It will only appear when we use it. Since it's a space, it can be decorated. But to make it as good as Sister Bing's realm of wind and snow, it needs, Hui immediately answered, high-level primeval. Sui-Ching nodded. When you enter the high-level primeval, the primeval realm will undergo a metamorphosis. At that time, it can change its form. It can change the pure energy realm into a realm with a physical form. It will be like a real space. Hui clapped his hands and laughed. Then you can put all kinds of big bombs, big explosions, and big fireworks. Everyone was speechless. This person is hopeless. He has been infected. However, that was indeed the case. The Yuanshi domain was not meant for living. It could be used for emergencies, but to live in it for a long time. Imagine living at the foot of a volcano. One day, the ground suddenly trembled. The normal reaction would be to immediately look up to see if it was going to explode, right? If it trembled every few days, even if it didn't explode, it would make him mentally weak. He would have to move out in less than 2 days. But actually, there is someone more suitable to explain this than us. As Sui-Ching spoke, she glanced at Huijun. The latter immediately reacted and shouted through the soul transmission. Jingyun, are you free? If you are, come to the observer space. If you're not free, there are a lot of relics of the primeval god. Are you free? I don't have a choice. Jingyun's voice suddenly sounded. About 2 minutes later, Jingyun landed from the sky with a face of excitement. Seeing Huijun looking at her with a smile, a strange feeling welled up in her heart. Tell me, why are you looking for me? I'm sure that you did not call me over because of the relics of the primeval god. Oh, it's like this. Hui coughed dryly and brought up the topic just now. Jingyan crossed her arms and stroked her chin. The primeval domain, huh? Yes, it would metamorphose once after reaching the advanced primeval. When that time comes, the primeval domain that only exists as a pure energy domain could be transformed into a domain with actual form. Just as you imagine, you could press the entire scene in front of your eyes and change the landscape, which is equivalent to dragging the enemy into your own home ground, a main field where countless dangers lie in ambush. You could stuff 1,000,000 energy towers inside, as long as your body could withstand the weight of the primeval domain. If you can't, it's better to use fewer things or simply maintain the pure energy domain. Still, the two types of domains can be switched automatically anyway, and you can switch back if you're not used to it. Also, it will definitely be easier to use after it transforms and painstakingly decorated. No matter how you look at it, it will definitely be stronger than a pure energy domain. After all, with the strength of the order creations that we currently possess, why not drag 1,000,000 or 800,000 energy towers into it? With your various conditions, it won't be a problem to stuff an energy tower in the tens of millions, and it will even be strengthened by the domain. Well, you should understand now. This is yet another path that requires a lot of thought, and it will only be able to display the corresponding effects with the energy creations. This is a path that requires a lot of time and effort. It's very time-consuming, brain-burning, and very bald. Everyone nodded to show that they understood. We continued to look at him and smiled. Your primeval domain has also been decorated? Of course, our order creations were very powerful at that time, and those who were patient and could calm down to work on it had also dealt with the primeval domain. Jingyan nodded and looked at the wreckage on the ground and suddenly sighed. I also put a lot of thought into it back then, and now my primeval domain can continue to be set up, but it has been blown through, and I have to start all over again. Huey's eyes widened. That's it. It's a one-time thing. No, of course it's not a one-time thing. When I said that it was blown through, I meant that I pushed it down myself because I felt that it was not done well. After that, after I pushed it down, I just left it there and did not have time to fix it. Now, I want to work on it again with the situation of the Void front line, but I have not thought of how to do it yet. No clue. Jingyan waved his hand and laughed bitterly, causing everyone to laugh bitterly as well. The primeval domain that they had worked so hard to manage for who knows how long had been pushed down just like that, and they had no idea how to rebuild it. This should be considered as tearing down their home, right? Even if the primeval domain has been blown through, you don't have to worry about the damage to your creation. After all, the structure is engraved in your soul and other places, and you can just cast the domain again and repair it with some time and energy. By the way, there's another meaning to this. You can't construct something that you can't control and throw it into your primeval domain to repair it. You can't even understand the creation, and naturally, you can't make it merge with your primeval domain and yourself. However, you can throw it in and use it by force when the primeval domain is cast, so that it won't affect the creation and your soul won't burst. For example, the two cannons in the house of the god of origins. Also, there's another situation that will cause the creation in the primeval domain to be unable to be taken back after being thrown out. Jingyan shrugged. When the primeval domain is cast out, the creation will fall out, but it won't affect the root. You just have to climb out of the Temple of Souls and repair the primeval domain, and there won't be any abnormal changes. Yes, this time, you need to repair it from the beginning to the end, including the damaged and lost creations. They all need to be reconstructed, and they won't be permanently removed from the primeval domain just because they were lost or damaged. In this case, you've become a space for the creation to repair, and the creations that have been engraved and analyzed by your soul can be repaired and reconstructed with the primeval domain. You didn't expect that. Only when someone targets the soul and the structure of the creation will it affect the primeval domain, and other methods won't work. As Jingyan spoke, her eyes had already scanned the large pile of wreckage. She couldn't help but sigh. Look at you guys. Did you move a battlefield back? They're all broken creations. You even mentioned the primeval domain, which means there's something here that someone used to decorate the primeval domain. Sui Qing nodded and pointed at the huge blue surface that looked like an ice crystal. This is the creation of Sister Bing and the ice goddess. This is something left behind in the primeval domain of the heavenly god of origins. Where did you guys go and what did you do? Jing Yun asked. We brought it back from a short trip not long ago. Hui quickly explained. Yeah, that's it. A world near the continent of origins. Well, no wonder you could pick up the creation of the heavenly god of origins. I see. Is it related to the war near the final moment? Jing Yun's expression changed for a while as she looked at the huge thing that looked like it was made of ice crystal. I thought it was broken by the lad. She couldn't help but say. We couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of water. He probably still hadn't recovered from the shock of seeing the sanctum of origins being broken before his eyes. His mind was probably filled with the image of Maple breaking the primeval domain's creation. The primeval domain of the heavenly god of origins being killed by the chaos conceptual entity or something. Phew, it was not unimaginable. He already knew about the news of their fall and knew the process, so the shock was not that great. He just felt a little helpless. How should he put it? If he knew too much about similar situations, he would more or less feel lost about what he was doing. Even the heavenly god of origins was defeated in the past, and now relying on them. Well, there was no point in thinking so much. He just had to do it. No matter how much he thought about it, it wouldn't change the situation. Anyway, that's it. Well, I called you here to ask about the primeval domain. He pulled his crooked face with his hand, and then pointed at the huge pile of trash before him. Are you free? If you are, come and help. I think we're short-handed. Maple has been dragged over to be tortured. It should be fine, right? There shouldn't be any problems over at the creation space. Jingyan thought for a while and nodded. Well, I'll come and help. Creation space? What are you doing over there? Hey, those lads are toying with the creation space, trying to figure out its upper and lower limits, and doing everything they can to make it easier to use. Things like saving energy, speeding up. According to them, it only takes 300 years to create an energy source in the creation space. And there's an extra thread, which means that every creation space can use 300 years to create an energy source, and then continue to create energy towers and energy cores. We've only been out for a while. What have you all done? We asked. To be specific, it started 20 years ago when the little bro created the source law. Jingyan laughed dryly. Furthermore, to be more specific, this seed was actually planted when you were in primordial chaos. Later on, when the source laws appeared, everyone had gained enlightenment from various aspects. As the conditions increased, we became more and more inhumane. And it's also because everyone has origin energy now. We've calculated that there are a total of 145 types of origin energy, with 49 of them being Class 1 origin energy. Ordinary Class 1 origin energy cannot withstand them, and it seems that only second-generation inheritors would accept the legacy. That's the situation for the third-generation inheritors. They have begun to let themselves loose, and even the Origin Temple feels that there are areas that could be adjusted. However, since that's more important and not easy to mess around with, they turn to the Class 1 energy towers. One by one, they worked hard to turn them into individual energy towers, and now the total number of Class 1 energy towers is more than the total number of Class 2 and Class 2 energy towers. After that, they're still discussing how to use the Class 1 energy towers as a foundation, and how to use them together. Also, everyone is now waiting for the little bro to adjust the Class 2 and Class 2 energy towers, saying that the current Class 2 and Class 2 energy towers aren't good enough. Everyone, it's over. All of them had lost their minds, and the only thing left in their minds was attack at full capacity. All right, where's the little bro? Let's talk to him about some things. Why don't I see him? Oh, him. We looked up at the distant, clear blue sky. There was a blue pillar of light faintly illuminating the horizon. He raised a finger and pointed in that direction. There, he's over there. There's a high chance that he was dragged away by the heavenly gods of origin for tea. There's a small chance that he was knocked unconscious and his consciousness went back to the void of origin to take a stroll. The next time he wakes up, he might be even more Jing Yun. Anyway, he's busy, right? Got it. We'll talk to him when the time comes. Hui laughed bitterly. Jing Yun understood Maple's situation quite well. She didn't need to think too much to know what had happened to him. Well, after talking about the realm of origin, they still had to clean up the big pile of trash in front of them. But it was a very difficult thing to do. Previously, it was easy to clean up the fortress of origin because no matter how they cleaned it up, they still came from the same hole. Moreover, they still had residual energy, so it was easy to find the related fragments. But now, this garbage dump, it was unknown how many pieces of trash there were, and their energy had all dissipated. To clean them up was no less than putting 100 boxes of 10,000 puzzle pieces together in a pile and not giving the blueprint to put them back together. Anyway, they stood there blankly for 5 minutes, not knowing what to do. It was Sui Qing who understood that this matter was not simple. She said, "Let's look for Sister Bing's ring of frost first. No matter how broken it is, it's easy to recognize. As long as there are indeed complete fragments here, we can find it." "Oh, that's true. Let's deal with the most obvious things first." Hui nodded. After rummaging through the garbage dump twice, he looked up at Sui Qing again. "Speaking of which, how big is the ring of frost?" Sui Qing was stunned. I know. Sui Feng jumped up and pushed on the bridge of his nose. Then he said seriously, "It has a radius of 10,000 miles on the outside and 70,000 miles on the inside." Everyone was speechless. This thing could probably be put on the fortress of origin. The creation of the heavenly gods of origin was F***king huge. Now, they had only found a fragment that was 100 miles long and had almost no arc god knows how many more there were. It was not a good thing for a creation to be too big. In fact, when an object was 180 miles in size, it would feel especially huge. If you looked closer, you would not be able to see the end of it. As for the Temple of Origin, the Fortress of Origin, and the others standing 100 or 2,000 miles away, they looked like giant pillars holding up the sky. But if you looked closer, it would be like standing in front of a piece of land. Fortunately, these things could float. Otherwise, they might have to set up a formation around this floating island to prevent it from collapsing. Well, generally speaking, it was a good thing to be able to find creations from the previous era, and finding creations related to the primordial god was even more joyous. This was especially so since they had a way to put together and repair the ruined creations. Every piece of wreckage they found was equivalent to finding a usable creation, which meant that they could increase their combat strength. Of course, if there were only thumb-sized pieces left, then forget it. If they really wanted to repair them, Maple would probably want their lives. Take the Ring of Frost, for example. According to Sui Qing's speculation, if they took a fragment that was 100 miles long and let the realm of concept fully restore it, they might have to drain the sea of energy at its peak state hundreds of times. If he dared to tell Maple about this, Maple would dare to push him into the sea of energy as a sacrifice to the heavens. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.